And just to clarify, I was born into an Eastern Orthodox family and into Eastern Orthodox culture, and all my life I have lived into like in the Eastern Orthodox countries. So I've always like identified with the culture, even when I was an atheist. Like back in Montenegro, that's where I'm from originally. We had some kind of anti-religious government that had that wanted to make a law which would like confiscate all of the Orthodox Church property. So I was an atheist back then, and I still went to the Orthodox Christian protests, the processions throughout my city. So I've always seen it as a part of my culture, but I didn't believe it. And the fact is, and fun fact, Montenegro was the only back like 200 years ago. Montenegro was the only Eastern Orthodox theocratic state that ever existed. Like in the fact that the bishop was a ruler, the bishop and the king was one and the same thing. Usually you would have a king, but in Montenegro you used to have a bishop ruler. So Orthodoxy is deeply rooted over there in our culture. So like you can be an atheist, but you cannot run away from your culture. So I used to like um, want to believe it, but then I couldn't. But I went like deeper into research, and you having been brought up Catholic, I'm sure you're like familiar with the church fathers. Am I right?
Could I interject just briefly?
Sure.
I was also raised Roman Catholic, very strict Catholic grandma and mom, and my journey closely mirrored a lot of what you described, Coco. But I have some friends who are like Orthodox, and I feel like there's a deeper cultural significance to the Eastern Orthodox versus like Roman Catholicism in the West is not as integrally tied into like cultural practices. It's more like go to church on Sunday, you know, go to the special mass for Easter or whatever, but it's not as deeply rooted in culture and community as maybe some other religions might tend to be. So when I became atheist and stopped going to church, I really was removed from that cultural element entirely.
Wow. So this panel is just made of Catholic, because I'm Catholic as well.
Atheist.
Oh, you guys are atheists now, ex-Catholic.
I'm an Eastern Orthodox catechumen.
Mm.
Oh, nice.
And the host
you got-
is agnostic. I left Roman Catholicism.
Have you guys tried the Latin Mass ever?
I actually, when I was in college, and like college was an amazing experience. I fucking love college. Like I wish I could be a college student forever. But like, I was like a Catholic in college, and I was like taking trips places and like talking to priests. Like I've heard that Latin Mass is like really beautiful, and like they read the Bible in like Latin, and it's like an amazing experience. Um, Maybe even as a non-believer, I wouldn't be too opposed to like experiencing it. But
Yeah.
I don't mind not doing the Catholic aerobics though, I'll tell you what.
Mm. Well, you guys were talking about
Sit down, kneel, stand.
I went through hardship. I don't even know if I can describe it. Right. I grew up in a very poor family back in my original country, which is in Africa.
wait,
I would go to.
can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Are you Nigerian by any chance?
No, I'm Cameroonian, next to Nigeria.
Okay, I'm a Nigerian descent, but no, that's cool that you were raised in Africa.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it was very hard. Like, I mean, it's not to maybe because when many people say they grew up in hardship in maybe Western countries and maybe European countries, sometimes when you look at their hardship, you're like, well, I better just have this hardship than having the one that I had, because I grew up poor, like very poor, poor, poor. I would go to school and I would come back from school and I would have to go to the farm to carry things on my head and bring it back home. And sometimes I would have to go to the market to sell things right after school. Like, never really had time to play like the other kids and stuff. But, surprisingly, I always trust in God. I always trust, even in the midst of the hardship and everything that was going on. Uh, and I even forgot, I grew up with my grandma because I didn't know my dad. And my mom got me very early, so she couldn't take care of me, and I was with my grandma. So imagine just all the hardship. And, I would go to school maybe sometime without allowance money, and you go to school, you come back, you're very hungry, and then you have to maybe make food for yourself because maybe the grandma is not there, things like that. And fast forward now, I live in America. I have a house. I I have cars. I have a good job. So the point I'm trying to make is, well, sometimes when you think your life is very hard, you went through many things. uh, I don't think it's the end. It's really not the end. And you can see even the story of Job in the Bible, where he is a righteous man. He's and he has a lot of things. He has cattle. He has wife. He has everything a person can have. And then he suddenly lose everything. He lost every single thing he had, but he continued trusting God. So I think it's a very good thing to continuously trust in God, regardless of whatever happened. You know, life has its ups and downs. Even if today you're good, it doesn't mean that tomorrow you're not going to be bad. The only thing that is constant is that trust that you have in God, and that's all.
I just completely disagree.
Amen.
I don't
Wait,
think
actually,
they need
wait, let me go first, actually, because I kind of want to hop on it.
Sure.
Okay, so like, first off, like that's amazing that you were able. It's amazing that you were able to like go from like hardship to like making something out of your life, and like, like I'm Nigerian too. Like I understand like people like are struggling out there brutally. Like I mean like to be born in the United States or to be born in Nigeria. I mean like the choice is well kind of obvious, but like I don't know, no insult to them or anything, but at the same time, like I kind of see all this struggling happening in the world. Like I see like people suffering and all this stuff, and like trusting in God is great, right? But like for me, like it doesn't do anything. It's not gonna like stop wars or like put money on the table, right? Like I trust in like people that like I can see, I can interact with, but like when it comes to God, I don't get any interaction or see how He's like doing anything to lessen suffering, or I don't even see how like I can believe
Why
that He's
would
created
God
the
need to
world.
do so? Again, let me grant what you're saying. Do you have an argument for why God would have to intervene at any point at all to under like to lessen suffering?
Um, if God's described as like a loving father and like there's all this suffering happening and he gives no reason for like why this suffering exists and he does nothing to stop it, then like I think it would be pretty justified to like
Again,
wonder
that's do you have any argument?
what's the reason why he's allowing this suffering, and he's not really loving to allow this suffering that seems to have no reason for it even
Yeah,
to
so the
exist.
question is what are the reasons, right? That's what
Why
we're
would
going to
God
be
need to step
basically
in to stop
debating.
suffering?
Mhm.
Because if he actually cared about us, he wouldn't want us to suffer unreasonably.
So are you saying that suffering is incompatible with an all-loving God?
No, I'm just saying that there seems to be like no reason for suffering. If there is a reason that makes it
So
compatible,
you are saying
like,
that suffering is incompatible with an all-loving God?
no, I'm saying like if it is, like feel free to give me the reason. I guess yeah, sure. I'll like
Well, I'm just saying this seems to be your reason for not accepting Christ. Probably your main reason, right? and you don't have an
No, I
argument
point
for
towards
it.
all the harm
So
it
you
caused
literally
humans
are
for
you
thousands of
literally are doing the
years.
same thing an uneducated Christian would do, to come up and say Christ is God, and they have no argument for it
No,
because of some
okay.
intuition. That's the same thing that you are doing, Coco.
Okay, let me engage, Proc. I don't believe in God because he's given me no reasons for why the suffering that I endure is necessary. And I don't see any
I'm
reason.
talking about the problem of suffering
Wait,
right now.
wait, like I don't see any reason why like we suffer. So essentially like it's just purposeless suffering to me. And like don't give me a reason that you think God would have for like all of us suffering. Give me something that God has told you this is the specific reason for why we suffer. Because like sitting here and arguing for God and being his lawyer, like I don't give a fuck about that, right?
Listen, the premise
God
you made.
himself, then God himself put me in a world where people are getting melted by volcanoes, where like children are being born with a bunch of like fatal diseases by the millions per year, where like all this suffering is happening, and like you want to come over here and say like, well, maybe God has a potential reason for why all this suffering has happened, but the guy couldn't even come down and explain to us why like
No,
this is
I don't have a
happening in any
single
regard.
argument from Yuko that the suffering that you're talking about that is a problem
Do
is
arguments need to be
incompatible with an
premise-based,
all-loving
or
God.
can
I don't have a
arguments
singular
do
argument from
arguments
you.
need to be premise-based, or can they just be like?
No, it doesn't need to be premise-based.
Well, I've given
Not
you
to
an
mention
argument.
He doesn't
PRK.
even
That's
have
not
an
an
I've
argument.
argument.
given you an
He
argument.
just
I have
asked
no
a
reason
question.
from
PRK,
God,
PRK.
and like I
You
have no
jumped.
reason from God why this suffering exists, and like the only thing I get is just like Christians coping for God.
It's
Yeah,
not
PRK
coping.
So-
You're not
jumped
giving
right
an
into the
yeah,
argument
because
against
middle of a
claims, Coco.
conversation.
Tell me how God is.
I could say the
explaining
same
God
thing.
is-
Like the ignorant Christians who come to you and say Christ is God with no justification. You're literally doing the same thing. You're giving
But
no
you're jumping
argument for why
into
you
a
think it's
conversation
incompatible
between
He's
for
literally just
suffering
asking a question,
to
man.
be compatible with God. You're giving no argument.
Tell me.
Yeah.
PRK, you're
tell
jumping
me-
into a conversation between other people that was just a calm conversation back and forth. No one was making any arguments. You came in trying to demand that Coco present an argument for a straight up conversation he was having with God First and SCG. Like
Wait.
you're the one here antagonizing, trying
Look,
to
Big
develop
Mike,
an argument from
Coco, I
someone
actually
else.
really like Coco, and I think he's a really nice guy, and I believe that Jesus Christ is God and he rose from the dead. So if he
I'm
says
sorry you
something
don't
that
have
is
any
not
logical
justified by an
faculty or
argument,
reasoning
then I have no
skills.
reason to accept it. Any argument
He
without
wasn't
evidence can
delivering
be
an argument to
disregarded.
you.
Can be disregarded. We don't
He
need
was
to
having
hear
a
Coco's
asking a
argument.
question,
It
man.
doesn't mean
Someone
anything
else.
because he has
Okay.
no evidence. He has no philosophical evidence. He has no deductive logic. He has no empirical evidence. He has no
Presented
historical
deductive
evidence
logic.
for any of what he's saying right now.
Wait,
He
Proc,
just presented deductive
wait,
logic.
hold on, pause. All I'm saying, Proc, is that like I have no reason to believe that there's a purpose behind this suffering, and I believe that like this suffering is happening and it's just unjustified. Like,
Do
I
you
don't
have an
see any
argument
reason.
that there is no purpose behind the suffering?
What do you need?
Free will is an
What do
illusion.
you need? What do you need for me to satisfy your need for an argument? Like, give me an example of what an argument would be to satisfy what you're looking for.
Premises that follow to a conclusion. If
Is
the
every
premises
argument-
are true, the
Is
conclusions
every
will follow.
argument? Does every argument?
Or
have
if you have an
premise?
argument that uses empirical evidence or historical evidence to suggest this, sure.
Empirical evidence to suggest that God doesn't really care about His creation and the suffering that they go through.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what the argument is that an
Easily.
all good
Okay,
God
so,
can
like-
allow for suffering.
so, like-
That cannot allow for suffering. I'm curious to know.
So right now I could go on Google and I could find plenty of examples of people praying to God, begging for God to take away their fatal illness. And
That's
they all
not an
died.
argument.
They all died from it. That's
That's an
empirical.
observation. That's a claim.
No. You asked for an argument with empirics, and like that's empirics. I can find people who have prayed to God to please take
What
away. your
argument are you
sickness.
making?
I'm making the argument that God doesn't seem to care about His creation, and like this is an observation that I'm having about the world. People praying to God to have their sickness taken away, and they end up dying from their sickness.
So do you think that
PRK
follows
plan
that God
to-
doesn't care about His creation because He
Why
allows
would
suffering?
why would you ask God to like help you or take something away from you, and He just let you die?
PRK, do you plan to answer these questions? Because I can.
He's okay. So I'm asking him very clear questions, and he's not be able to.
No,
do
you're
that.
asking for
You
clarification,
want
and he's
You
giving
want
it.
an empiric.
He's not
Guys-
giving any
These are
clarification.
Guys, can we just keep it like maybe?
I'd love
just
to answer your questions,
conversation?
controversial.
No,
You
not
want to
really a
answer?
debate.
You want to answer my question for Coco? Go ahead, Jake.
I can definitely answer the questions that if you'd like to reiterate them to me, I can go ahead and state just to prove that I was paying attention.
Yeah. What's the argument that suffering is incompatible with an all good God, or the fact that we suffer?
I actually prefer the way that Controversial reiterated it 5 different times for you, PRK. So let me just go ahead and say the way that he reiterated it 5 different
multiple
times.
different times
To a very simple question, which is why does God?
I just want an argument.
Correct. Why does God allow suffering? Is this the question, Controversial?
Wait, what do you mean by art? Like, you're asking for an argument, and an argument isn't always premise based. So, like, what are you expecting from us?
Yeah, so what I'm expecting is not just a claim that,
You want-
I don't
wait,
think that
you
God
want
would
empirical
allow
data?
this type of suffering, therefore that he is not all good or that he doesn't exist. These types of things, they're absolutely bogus and they don't make any sense.
The argument could be had that if God is omnipotent,
hold on,
there is no good or
Wait,
evil.
Hold on. You're asking for an argument with empirical data. Okay, so my empirical data is I go throughout the world and I see people like starving or like suffering in the world due to like natural disasters or like fatal just like birth defects. And what I don't see, right, is any explanation from God as to like why this is happening and why people who are...
So I'll make it very simple for you.
Hold on, I'm not finished. How some people are practically innocent and are like suffering from these things, how animals who haven't really done anything are like more or are moral agents or suffering from these things. Like I see like a lot of suffering, no explanation for it, and I see zero anything that would suggest that God is doing anything to like lessen or like help anybody who's like suffering. So like given that, I'm coming to a conclusion based on the empirics and the data that I have that I'm interpreting that God doesn't seem to care about the people he's suffering with. God doesn't seem to make any efforts to lessen the suffering. And God did a whole lot to instantiate a lot of this suffering. Because we live in a world where volcanoes randomly erupt and take out villages of people and destroy everything that they've spent their entire lives working for. We live in a world where babies are born with leukemia and are literally like drowning in their own snot and vomit. And God doesn't seem to be doing anything to like stop any of that.
Yeah, so why do you expect the holy God? Wait, hold on.
Kind of the empirics that you've got. Like I don't know what else.
Why do you expect a holy God to eliminate suffering in those instances that you just mentioned? Okay. Why do you expect that?
Because it's either that God loves his creation, and wants to lessen suffering for his creation. It's either that God has a reason for
So if God loves his creation,
hold on.
it follows?
It's either that God is a loving God and wants to lessen suffering or stop suffering, or God has a reason behind why the suffering is happening. Which
God doesn't owe a justification. PRK is never going to say it. PRK is never going to say it, ever. He's just going to keep running you around in a circle. But God does not have a justification. God does not have a justification. I don't understand how we could expect responsibility from an omnipotent entity. So this is, in the Christian faith, God is an entity above our thought processes, beyond our imagination, beyond our thought. So
there's no argument to say that the suffering that we see in the world is not expected under a worldview of a holy God. There's no argument, and you guys haven't provided the argument.
If there were an omnipotent, all-powerful deity, there is absolutely zero chance some random human beings thought up what it was. The Christian God, if it exists, is an evil, malevolent demon.
And that's true.
That is using to punish all of humanity through your false belief in it, to commit horrific crimes, including genocide, slavery, bigotry, hurting other people. That's the history of the Catholic Church.
So just to baseline what I'm here to communicate. I do believe that there is an entity more powerful than our ability to understand him or justify his actions. I do believe that he has created predestiny. I believe that he does what we walk in and day out is his design. Does that rid us from responsibility, not on a social level, but on a benevolent level? I don't believe that anything could be good or evil because we have an entity who creates what is good or evil. He dictates what is good or evil. So that entity, being more powerful than us, has the ability to decide what is good and evil based off of our own thought processes. What we decide is evil is also his decision is evil, and we can't have a thought outside of his. So in answering controversial question, which I feel PRK was never going to actually get to, is that God would be outside of this justification, regardless of our ability to want to judge God. it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah,
We
that's
wouldn't
that's a
have the ability.
terrible. It's a
I
pretty
do
bad
validate. I
understanding.
do validate.
Wait, Jake. I have no clue how I haven't answered Ko's question.
Actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm exhausted.
How have I not answered Ko's question? Do you know?
I'm exhausted.
I'm not. This isn't a gotcha. Like, oh, you didn't remember the last 10 seconds.
exhausted.
I don't think you actually.
I'm here to just hopefully communicate
That's why
with
I'm
the host.
asking it.
No,
I'm exhausted by
move on.
PRK.
Just move
So
on.
PRK,
Yeah,
you're
because
just
you
asking.
don't even know
you're
my
just
argument.
asking overall. Where's the
Just move on.
contradiction in
I'm
where and all
exhausted.
good?
Wait, just move on. I don't want to talk about it. I'm exhausted.
Can we communicate? I can literally pretend like this panelist doesn't exist. Would you like to communicate about how particularly our view of good and evil actually tends to be something that is judgmental but not exact? We can't decide what is good or evil because our entity decides what is good or evil.
Yeah, realist about good and evil.
Yeah, we can talk about anything else. I don't want to talk about problem of evil for like the 5 millionth time that we talked about it on TikTok.
Can we talk about
Stop in for a second?
Can we talk about the illusion of free will?
Sure.
Okay.
Can I just hop in for a second? I'm not gonna make any argument, just an interesting thought. Like,
We got
may I
Borat
ask
in the
you,
chat, y'all.
Compass. Sorry,
Yeah.
can I just ask you, Compass? Your college did you study anything math related?
I know like a little bit of math, but like I kind of hated math. It was like my worst subject.
But you're familiar with the concept of limits, right? You know, like limit of 1 over x, for example, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, like when you have x and the limit of x when x goes towards like 5, that equals 5, right? So, you know, a thought that always came up to my mind with the problem of evil would be like if you have a constant, and let's say a limit of 1 over x when x goes towards infinity, that equals 0, right? So, you know, let's say the afterlife does exist. In that case, like, and somebody suffered throughout their whole life, the percentage of their existence, including the afterlife, spent in the suffering of this world would be going towards 0, would be close to 0, so to speak. You know, granted that they would go to heaven, of course, under this presupposition.
I don't even know what like you're saying when you're talking about.
He's saying out of the entire existence of somebody's soul or spirit, obviously that's what we're saying we're eternal, that the point in time of which you're going to be suffering is going to be from eternity is going to be such a limited amount of time, it's going to be basically 0.
I didn't get
the insignificance theory. I'm not sure if he's just remembering a TED talk that he heard, but that's called the insignificance theory. And so the insignificance theory also compiles that the suffering that we individually feel is not relative to the suffering of the entire world. So in example, the Palisades fire is not in comparison to the entirety of the fires that have existed on Earth before. All of the fires that have ever existed on Earth do not compare to the singular fire in which we had so much suffering involved. The insignificance theory is just is a theory that Christians communicate with agnostics to assume a sort of baseline that with our faith we are supposed to believe that it is to get better. Moving forward to that, to something we can communicate, I do believe that free will is an illusion.
Why can't the naturalist agree, like, look, there's some asymptotic limit on suffering such that your individual experience does not compare to the total infinite set? That's fine. Where you get, therefore, God from that.
KJ, I don't know if you could fix your microphone a little bit.
Yeah, I said, where do you get, therefore, God from an asymptotic limit?
From just the eternity of time? Is that what you're saying? Therefore,
You
there is a God
understand
because
infinite doesn't mean eternal?
Right. We speak about the sociology of our history as an infinite, though, because we don't see an end to it.
Awesome. Does that mean eternal?
That means that our continued existence until the end of it is perceived as eternal. We're talking about quantum physics now.
So eternal typically cashes out as something that has no beginning and has no end, whereas infinite has a beginning but has no end, or has an end but no beginning. So to use them interchangeably is nonsense. And also, I've not got a clear answer to my question. Just going off of asymptotic limits, which is the mathematical concept SCG employed to somehow provide some question instead of an argument, as he put it. Where do you get therefore God from 1 over x asymptotic, or asymptote, excuse me?
No, my argument wasn't for existence of God. It was. It's not even really much of an argument. It's a thought. It's not for the existence of God. It's for the problem of suffering.
Presupposes God and saying that we
That's
are
why I
we
said
would
it's a
be
question.
eternal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then you, Kai, went on to talk about some eternal theodicy, and Jake was agreeing with you. And I tried to interrupt, and I said, "Look, I don't know where, Kai, you got any of that extrapolated from what SCG said. So I'm challenging the idea that you proposed and Jake backed up."
So
Can you
when he said 1 over 0, right? The limit
He
of 1
said
over
1
0
over
being
x.
infinite.
1 over x when x is going towards infinity?
Yeah, 1 over x equaling 0, right?
What?
All he's saying is that the percentage of time, we're presupposing we are eternal beings, right? I understand you're saying we're potential infinite, the fact that we have a starting point. Is that what you're getting at
He
here,
didn't
KJ?
say 1 over 0. He said that x is some asymptote, not 0. 1 over 0 would be an undefined function.
Yeah, I know I misspoke there. It's 1 over x is what he was referring to. So are you mad at the potential infinite? I don't know what you're questioning here. So
I don't
basically all he's
know. I'm
saying is the
perfectly
amount of
fine with.
time throughout your existence,
Is that a
right?
rhetorical question, or did you want an actual answer to that? Okay, well, look, I have no problem with infinites in the case of math, right? They're used all the time to explore functions, and that's fine. I don't care. What I care about is using some asymptote, 1 over x, where x approaches infinity, to justify some God hypothesis as you put forth. What SCG said is fine. I don't care about any of that. I care about what you said immediately after and what Jake was about to build upon as if it was an argument for God. That's why I prefaced with SCG saying it was a question, not so much an argument.
No, I was just reiterating what SCG said, hoping I was grasping the right understanding of what he was getting at. I wasn't
You did
making any
not.
argument.
Wait, Cage, do you believe an infinite regress of material things exist?
No, I'm agnostic to the infinite debate.
Okay, so if an infinite regress to material things don't exist, wouldn't like William Lane Craig's like
Did
argument
I
that he always
say they
runs
don't
that there's an
exist, Brooke?
immaterial uncaused cause, wouldn't that just follow?
Did I say they don't exist, Brooke, or did I say I'm agnostic on the infinite regress debate?
You said you were agnostic. So
Great.
do you
That
deny?
doesn't
Okay,
mean the
yeah, fair enough.
denial of the
Do you
proposition,
okay, fair
correct?
enough. That you know what? You're right.
Great.
Do you deny the PSR?
Which one?
The strong PSR?
So Leibniz is PSR?
Yeah.
Let me guess. You're agnostic. How convenient.
I was having a conversation. What was the question?
Yeah, I said do you deny the strong PSR?
So Leibniz law?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, good. So wouldn't that follow then that there's some immaterial cause of the material reality?
No, because Leibniz law applies to mathematical concepts which are not material.
Yeah, and I'm saying that the material reality is dependent on some immaterial source, and wouldn't that follow from Leibniz's law of
No,
the
because
PSR?
Leibniz law is about immaterial concepts of math, not about material objects following some infinite set.
Yeah, wouldn't the strong
Okay,
PSR
sure. So
mean an infinite regress of
fine.
God?
If it's not material, if it's immaterial objects, you hold to it, right?
Yeah, I propose that if there exists some immaterial, I propose that in these immaterial concepts to which might hold the property of being existing but not being real, an infinite regress is possible. I agree.
Right. Would you say that the physical things are dependent on this immaterial source?
I didn't. I didn't say this immaterial thing was an ontology, nor did I say it was a source.
Okay, so let's just say it's not a source or ontology. Do you think this
Right.
immaterial thing precedes the physical stuff?
I have no idea. It could be some supervenient relation given the physical world. I think it's pretty telling that
So you don't think
um,
there's an uncaused cause even though you accept the PSR?
what the fuck? I told, are you stupid? I told you I accept the PSR for mathematical immaterial concepts. It doesn't entail me or commit me or consequent me more properly to any type of view on ontology. Like, where are you getting this from?
But also, isn't saying that
Try insulting him
isn't
more.
saying
Maybe we'll
isn't saying
appreciate your view.
strong
What?
isn't saying strong PSR and uncaused kind of like contradictory?
No, it's
I
not
have to be
contradictory.
committed to a.
It
I
seems
have to
like
be.
that, but it's not.
Yeah, but
Someone to get your point across, something like a 12-year-old would do.
I
wait,
have to be
sorry.
committed to some type of
Depends if they
Yeah,
deserve it or
so
not.
first
if
cause
I'm
or
taking the PSR to be every thing has a cause, right? As a prior cause, wouldn't that just mean that if we're taking a strong PSR, that would also apply to the God case? And
No,
so to say that
because
God
the
is an
thing
uncaused
is,
cause.
when we're talking about the PSR, when we're talking about everything requires a cause and there's an infinite chain of causes with physical events, that's only going to apply to physical objects. That's not going to apply to God.
Oh, so when I was giving you an account of Leibniz law as it's articulated in arithmetic, and then you presuppose that I would apply that to physical functions, you were being dishonest?
Say that again?
Yeah, you just said that you completely understand that the strong PSR would not be applicable to non-physical objects. And when I gave you that same account, you asked me a question to which presupposed that exact concept that you outright denied. So were you being dishonest when you asked me that question?
Again, I don't know what you're saying.
I grant that.
So,
I take that as a
Can we move
plea to your
on? This
intelligence.
is
Can you
boring.
can you explain the PSR to me in a way where
You're boring.
God is
Whitney.
just not?
You're boring.
Yeah, I mean, the PSR is like, I understand it is that
Whole
there
conversation is
are an
predestined.
infinite set of causes, and there's no explanation for that set of there's no foundational explanation or cause for the
Yeah, so
infinite set
would you
of
say?
causes that would depend on the prior cause through infinity. And so
Yeah,
if there's no
so
explanation for this chain, this infinite chain of causes, there's no foundational explanation. I would say that's probably pretty problematic. And
yeah,
what I
but
would say is that there was probably a cause for the
yeah,
chain.
None
but
of us can
PSR,
decide right now
the
to
strong
not be in this
PSR isn't
conversation.
saying that. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, there's an explanation for every cause. That's the strong PSR.
As there,
Or
well,
there's an explanation, or there's a cause for every physical thing, or there's an explanation of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Brooke, would you place that in a bimodal distribution?
Shut the fuck up, Corey.
Jim, what were you going to say?
For a V6 in line.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask why does he think that this principle only applies to like physical reality or something?
Because again, I'm no expert. From my understanding, is that non-physical things like God can, in its very nature, explain itself. But physical objects would be causal. And so if there's an infinite series of causal events with no foundational explanation for the chain, then yeah, that is pretty compelling for me.
How would something
The question causality.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So how's immaterial things explain themselves?
How is immaterial? What do you mean by that?
Well, you said that you only think that this applies to like physical reality because immaterial things explain themselves.
Well, yeah, immaterial things in themselves aren't based on causation. There can be another explanation for their reality that has nothing to do with causation. But when we're talking about material things, that's going to be causation. And so there's got to be a foundational explanation or cause for the infinite set of causes or effects.
Why though? Why does there have to be one?
Yeah, because everything requires some type of explanation, or material things require some type of cause. Now, if you want to disagree with
Yeah,
that,
that's
fine.
just that you're just restating the principle.
How would that
I'm
relate
asking
to
like
evolution?
why that has to apply.
How would that
Yeah, I
relate
don't
to
know why you're
evolution?
jumping in. I'm
Because
sorry,
I
I don't
mean,
know why you're jumping
if we
in.
look
I'm jumping in
philosophically,
because there's no.
Yeah,
if we're looking
I really don't care. I'm not
philosophically, sure,
interested.
you can say that. Why does it have to be this way or the other? I think that's probably fair. But when we're looking at when we're looking at multiple lines of evidence, like in science, like the Big Bang Theory, or the fact that energy is a finite amount, or things like that, I think that gives more evidence towards it. And so I hold to the PSR. I don't
So
have an
this is
argument
it.
against it. I
Is
don't
this
have an
like some
argument
type
against
of?
the fact that.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Let me
I'm just trying
finish
to
this.
clarify here. I'm
Mhm.
just trying to clarify.
I don't
Sorry,
really
you're just
understand
making
why I
the.
got kicked. Just Jim just joined in and then
Yeah,
now
keep
he's
doing what you're
off.
doing right now.
Interrupting.
I don't
Yeah,
really
that's
understand.
why.
At
And
what
then
at what point is
yeah,
there a
yeah,
space to?
yeah. The
Holy
reason
shit.
that you don't understand is
Holy
just you don't
shit.
track slow boy. So that's why you're off the panel.
Okay, just Jim. Like I'm behind you, but like okay. Wait, hold on. Okay, before anyone continues, it's just when two people are having a conversation, just kind of like let them do their thing. And I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's okay. Just like they're having a conversation and trying to get through a point. Just let them kind of like finish up.
I
And
understand.
then,
I
like,
understand, but we're aware that I was sitting here on the panel, and then just Jim hopped
Yeah,
right
you were
in.
sitting.
To decide,
Yeah, you were sitting
but I
there, not
understand. At some
contributing
point,
anything
I'm
to the
going to be able to
conversation,
speak.
right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're sitting there,
At
not
some
contributing
point,
to the conversation, and then you're trying to derail a conversation that was already being had between PRK and Cage and RH, right? You're contributing points that have nothing to do with the conversation.
I think that that's your personal opinion, and just because you have mod power, you're making
Yeah,
that
really. So
true.
yeah, so go for it. So what enlightened point do you have to contribute to the conversation? Go for it.
I don't believe you've given me 5 seconds of space to even have a
Go ahead.
controversial
I'm giving
thought.
you the space now.
I understand, but do you understand the territorial?
I don't care about the meta. I don't care about the meta.
Get out of the meta and just what do you have to contribute to the conversation?
What's the point?
Right, but since I'm a human breathing being, I'm going to speak on the fact that
Jake, get off the meta because otherwise we're just going to drop you.
Wait, hold on. Everyone stop. Let me clarify this. Okay, Jake, I would like to just hear what point you were going to make, and then after he makes his point, like I would like to hear what the conversation was about, and let me see if it was relative to the conversation. Go ahead, Jake.
We were speaking about causality when I tried to join in, when I wasn't welcome to join in. We were speaking about how causality doesn't actually factor into immaterial things.
Yeah.
I was saying, well, who are we as creation to offer any kind of explanation to ourselves? Which is a valid, viable point. If anybody cared about somebody else, if there was some empathy involved.
You asking, yeah, thank you. So you asking a rhetorical question. How does that push the dialectic forward?
I believe it is important. You don't value it as one human being
So how does it push
with
the
mod
dialectic forward?
powers.
How
It's
does it push the dialectic forward?
How
does
about
it
you
push it
understand
forward?
that maybe I could offer something?
Well, Jake.
Yeah, now you wanted to offer something. Now I'm going to keep the conversation
were given
linear
a
with you, right? Now I'm going to keep the conversation linear with you. How does that move the conversation forward? What do you think that introduces into the conversation that pushes some point forward, whether there is causality and infinite regress or not? Go ahead, answer.
Personally believe it does not have any viability, that there is nothing to offer.
I'm asking you to give the argument what it has to do with the conversation by asking some like rhetorical existential question about our existence.
I believe that it moves the dialect forward to the fact that why are we processing these thoughts when these thoughts aren't
How
needed to be
does it
processed?
move the dialectic
That's what's in
forward? You're
question.
just saying I think it does. The question is how does it move it forward?
I believe it opens a space to communicate about processes of where our thought process come from.
Yeah. Okay. So now you want to talk about like philosophy of mind when we're talking about the PSR and infinite regress. So you see how your interjection derails the conversation and it has nothing to do with what we were talking about.
I think
that's why I muted you, and then
and
afterwards
another
that's why I
panelist.
dropped you.
I think that you and another panelist.
Yeah, the reason
that
I
was
dropped you is
interesting
because you're
or
fucking
innovative
slow.
conversation,
Because you're a fucking retard.
but it was actually
That's why I
really
dropped you.
boring.
Yeah,
and we were making.
Get off the fucking
Jim.
panel. Get off the fucking panel.
Jim,
Wait,
Jim,
I
now
was
we
just
gotta
gonna-
drop you too, man.
Yeah, that's
Damn it,
fine. I'll
Jim.
drop. I'll come back.
Yeah, okay, we'll bring Jim back.
Also, if that Jake guy comes back, if you can say what PSR stands for, then you can talk.
Listen, when anybody
honestly,
mentions
guys,
PSR,
in keeping with the spirit of the PSR, though, I really want to talk about the problem of evil. It's like, how does the
Listen,
problem of evil
nobody else has
Corey.
been asked to like define
Wait.
their education or intelligence, and I think it's disrespectful.
Wait, Jake.
And I just want to not
Wait,
have a
hold
personal
on.
Jake,
attack
Jake,
against me. Do you
Jake,
understand?
Jake, nobody's attacking you
Wait.
personally, but like the
Jake.
rest of the people on the panel were having a conversation that was relevant to the actual discussion of
Boring.
causality, the PSR, and infinite
That was
regress.
clearly
whether
boring.
Wait, hold
you
on,
think it's
Jake.
boring is irrelevant.
No, it wasn't
Jake.
boring. Everyone
Jake.
else was interested in the conversation they were
Wait.
having. The fact that it's boring to you means you can also leave the panel and go to a conversation you find more entertaining.
Okay. Actually,
But you
wait.
don't.
Started a conversation before that. You don't
Jake,
understand because
hold
you
on.
interjected into a conversation
Wait,
you weren't
Jake.
in.
Jake.
Okay,
Wait,
hold
Jake, how
on.
about this? Wait, hold on. Jake, how about this? I reject your PSR. Now what?
Wait, no, you're not tracking, Craigsy.
yeah, Craig's crazy. This is an atheist.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Z is very rarely tracking, so that's going to be par for the course. But that's a conversation
Jake,
for another day.
just tell
Point
us what.
is,
Tell us
two
what.
mods hopped up into the
Jake,
panel when we were having a
Jake,
conversation before. This conversation was
Jake,
not the conversation I joined in on
Jake.
and wanted
Yes.
to communicate.
Okay, cool.
You
Now,
started
what
trailing
does the
on
PSR
another train
stand
of
for?
thought, which I wanted to
What?
communicate first.
What does PSR stand for, Jake?
Listen, this is disrespectful.
Cool, I agree. You don't know. Now, Jim and Brooke, can you guys keep going?
It's
Because what I was
disrespectful.
interested in is like
I don't even know where we left off.
Brooke, when
It's
you
very
said,
clear
when you
that
said,
I've been
Sorry,
here for
Jake.
half an hour, so I'm understanding
Sorry,
of the
Jake.
principle of sufficient reason.
Cool. Yeah,
It's
you got it right.
disrespectful.
You got it right. Yeah. So,
Hold on,
Brooke, when you
hold
said
on.
every,
Wait, hold on. So let me gain control of this. Okay, I would just say like from now on, if like two people are like discussing, let's just try to stay on topic and like maybe let them finish like their one-on-one and then like jump in when it seems as if like they're almost finished.
I've been here 35 minutes trying to have a conversation with the host about the illusion of free will, waiting while just Jim and Corey hops into this and takes this on like some super train. I've been waiting. I don't know if you've been here all day, but I've been waiting to have a conversation.
Okay, so like,
Great.
Oh, man,
Let's
I
shift the
forget-
conversation and attention to Jake. All right, Jake. So you believe that there is no free will? What's your argument for there not being any free will?
So I'm not sure if you're aware, but I debate every single night. I am literally.
I don't
So,
care. I don't
wait,
care
wait,
about the
Jake,
meta. Give
Jake,
me
your
the
ability-
fucking argument.
I've
Give
literally-
me the fucking argument if you debate every day. Give me the
I
fucking
have
argument.
I've literally debated with
also-
controversial before.
Premise
You
one.
guys are
Awesome.
just
Awesome.
Look, the next words out of your
Jake.
mouth. Look, the
You need
next
to peel
words out of your
yourselves
mouth.
back.
Yeah, the next
Okay.
words out of your
Hold
mouth
on,
better
hold
be
on,
premises that
peel
lead to a
yourself
conclusion.
back. Peel
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. The next words out of your mouth
Lock
better
in,
be
Jake.
premises that lead to a conclusion, Jake. Give me the argument.
Empathy. Respect a human being.
wait, hold on.
Wait.
hold on.
God,
I
I
don't have to
guarantee you're a
respect
Trump
shit. I don't
supporter.
have to respect
Jake-
shit, especially not
You
somebody
sure are
that's
a Trump
So
as
supporter.
simple. Everybody
Host.
Yeah. Give me the fucking
just
argument.
Wait,
give
okay.
the
You're a
argument for
Trump
why
supporter.
free
Can't
will
even
is
get
an
a thought out.
illusion.
Can't even get a breath because it has to be after
Jake,
Jim.
you,
Just
Jake,
say
Jake,
it.
you have been asked to give your argument. Give your argument. Stop
Bro,
going into
are
the
you
meta.
on your period? Like for real? Just give the argument.
Wait, really quick before we continue, can I get an idea of like what everybody's viewpoints is just so I can start tracking a little bit?
No. Okay.
So we're gonna
Wait,
move on with the
wait.
conversation.
Guys,
I didn't do
No,
that.
I-
I didn't fucking
I-
drop him.
Okay.
I
Oh, sorry,
dropped him because I
sorry.
find him stupid and annoying. So we're gonna actually have the conversation.
No, but
Right.
Okay.
So Jake, give the argument for why free will is an illusion. Go.
In the Christian faith and the Abrahamic God is omnipotent, all-knowing, and in everything. For this to be true, that means that your destiny must be predestined. So you cannot make a choice that he would be blind to.
Okay.
So-
What's the
That God
argument
know your
that I'm
choices. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
hold on a second.
Sure,
let me
I was
grab
finished.
this.
Go ahead. I was finished.
Great, thank you. What's the
Thank you, I
argument that
appreciate you.
omniscience somehow leads? Yeah, thank you. What's the argument that omniscience somehow leads to some type of causality in terms of our decisions?
I was actually kind of gonna ask the same question, low key. Like, why does that entail that? But you know,
Yeah, it's the basic question.
I don't mind. Just to reiterate, you're asking me. Why does that matter?
No. We're asking for why God's knowledge, his omniscience entails a causality.
Right. So what you're asking me, I'm not understanding. I guess I'm willing to admit what you're trying to say with your words.
Okay.
Are you saying?
It's really easy. What's your argument?
Let me very shortly reiterate what I'm saying. That because if we're talking about an Abrahamic religion, the God, the entity God, is all knowing, which is the only word that I'm going to use. I won't use any of the other fancy ones. All knowing, meaning that he knows from the beginning to the end, meaning that every moment of
I know
all
what it
of
means.
time. Yes, right. So I'm trying to specify just because I don't know. I want to use the proper term because a lot of people don't like omniscient. They don't like omnipotent. Those words aren't enjoyable to them. So
Okay,
all
meta.
knowing is what I like to use.
Keep going. You were doing good.
The question is, if a God is all knowing, none of your decisions can be your own.
The claim. So
That's-
what made
that's
maybe
the argument.
get through to it? So what we want is why foreknowledge negates human libertarian free choice.
So because it
why
would
it's
be an illusion.
necessary.
Does that
This
not?
guy
Does that
debates
not?
every night, and he can't even track a question.
It's no. I'm very aware of what you're saying. I feel like you're just trying to use like Palestinian communication. Like I don't know. You're
What
trying to
does
like.
that mean?
Palestinian
You gotta like be
communication?
calm.
What does that mean?
I use
You're
Israeli
aggressive.
communication.
Actually, I
personally.
only speak in
You're
Zionist.
aggressive.
So.
Yeah, I prefer a two-state solution to
You guys ever
communication.
have
personally.
like I've communicated
Jake,
with controversial
Jake,
before, and it
Jake,
wasn't an argument.
Jake,
It didn't seem like I
Jake.
was
That's
fighting.
fine.
to speak.
Yeah, you're not talking to the host right now. You're talking to me, slow boy. So give me the argument.
Okay. Actually, wait, hold on. Okay.
You're disrespectful as fuck. You're a little twit.
What the fuck is a twit?
I don't
Her
know.
name
but I
is
was
Wit.
looking
Holy
from the
shit,
curb
dude.
if
Her
I met
name
you,
is
boy.
Wit.
Really?
Get it right.
Corey,
Like,
you beat me
seriously
to
though.
it. You beat me to it, Corey.
It's a really simple question. What about God's all-knowing, right? He knows all things.
Let me just tell you something
entails
real
his
quick.
causal
I would
power.
put your teeth on the curb if I met you. Do you understand that?
Oh my
I don't know who you
goodness,
think you're
right?
talking to.
You think you would? You
I'll
think
put
you
your
would?
teeth
You
on
think
the
you
curb.
would? Where are you?
That's
Where are you,
wild.
Because I'll find you and I'll
Okay.
meet you. Yeah,
That's
right.
wild.
You better run.
No threats, please.
Yeah.
We're not.
Damn.
You don't fucking
No,
know
that
me,
was-
bro.
that
you don't
was
fucking know me.
messed
I will
up.
find you.
No,
Can I just
okay, we don't
say-
need to find the guy, but
Look,
he
does anyone
is mentally ill.
A
Look,
white
I'm just
guy with
curious.
a
I
green
wouldn't say
mohawk
that.
threatening
And
to
we
curb
are all
stomp is
mentally ill.
very
Guys,
It's very
I'm very
shocking.
concerned at
Come
how
back.
he got Jim's teeth. Like, did he get them from like Jim at a certain point? Did he get his baby teeth? Like, how exactly does one get these teeth to put on the curb?
I don't know.
No
Okay,
justification.
so
Is that a joke,
Jake-
Corey?
where's Jake at? I want him back.
No,
Wait, actually, wait. Let's take a breath because my shift today was stressful, and I was on Presence Live during the shift, and it was fucking retarded.
Whoa! What?
Oh my God,
Coco!
Coco.
Damn it, Coco.
What?
Drop the hose. Drop the hose.
Drop the host.
Drop.
Yep.
Sorry, it was my bad.
Wait, bring
I'm
Jake
reporting
back.
it live. I'm reporting it live for hate speech. Sorry, guys.
Please
Oh my
bring
God.
Jake back.
But we can all take a breath. We're probably just all like really angry right now. I'm a little bit angry. I kind of want to fight. But
I'm not angry. I'm in a good place. I don't know
I
what.
have no
Me
anger.
too.
The guy just comes up here and he's just like,
Yeah.
me too.
yeah, the Christian God, you can't have free will. Like, that's all he fucking said. So I just want to know the argument.
And then every time we
I'm gonna
asked
have-
the argument, he started reading his resume.
But yeah, like I'll take a
Wouldn't have
breath.
been an
I
issue if he
actually
just didn't interrupt with like stupid points all the time.
Yeah, well,
I'll have you know, I debate every single night. So I think right now I really want to bring up divine hiddenness.
did you guys
I
know,
know you guys-
that like there's no way for us to know like the depth and the mystery of all things, and that's totally linear to everything and applicable to every argument.
Yeah, they were talking about PSR. Bro said evolution, and I was like, oh, please just. Yeah. So Brooke, when you said PSR is everything has an explanation,
or cause if it's physical.
yeah, everything has an explanation or a cause. Is everything there a quantifier?
Is everything there a quantum? I mean, I guess so.
Yeah.
Guess
Would
so.
God fall under the set of everything?
Oh, okay. No. I mean, when I say that, I don't mean God.
Yeah. So
Wait,
are you saying something different by everything? Or are you using it in like the set of all things that are?
Wait, really quick before I move
Well,
on.
well, when I'm saying everything, what I mean by that is material reality.
Brooke, don't interrupt the host. Go ahead, Coco.
Wait, hold on. Before
Bro,
we move on,
shut up.
wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Before we let me clarify. President is my homie. No disrespect to him, but there were other Christians in there that were just dumb as fuck. Like,
Why do you need to add that? Like, go on.
Hey,
Chris.
wait. Can I add one stipulation? President's
No!
a dumb bitch.
wait.
Hello.
Hey.
I was first. And now I'm gonna tap the live. I'm gonna like and share. I'm gonna comment and subscribe. Let's say we have a coin, right? And if it lands on heads, you know.
No, the reason I needed to clarify is because President did something really nice to me, and so like he sort of earned my respect. But the other Christians were like just dumb, so I don't really. I'm not interested
Now
in
that we
like.
know these things, I just don't think it's like there's just
I
time.
feel like we're rewarding you, Coco, for slurring.
Can we kick Whip because she took Jim's box?
Yeah, no, I wanted. I did that literally.
What a B word, C word.
Hey, guys.
Can we keep Wit in the bottom box?
Hey guys,
I did that literally.
What a B word, C word.
Hey, guys.
Can we keep Wit in the bottom box? Can we keep Wit in the bottom box?
Hey guys, my main is back. Look, I'm on my main. I'm back.
What?
Can we kick Slurms?
Oh, nice.
Oh shoot.
No.
No, wait, Slurms. No, I'm happy.
A lot better.
Fuck you, Jim.
Thanks, Coco. It's
Good
the
job,
first nice thing you've said to me ever.
No, like
I will drop you and take your box.
No, yeah, Slurms. I enjoy your presence. I'm glad your account is
All right,
back.
enough. That's enough.
What?
I wish I was recording, but as soon as Coco started this live, he said, "Bloody L," like that. I swear to God.
No, okay, no, like, cause like I
You
don't know,
should get banned just for that.
we know, cause like I think the British like that British like term or whatever they say is like really cool. So like for
Yeah.
like
Okay.
so now I just say it as like an exclamation. Like randomly throughout the day, I'll just be like, "Oh, bloody hell, mate!"
No, but
Oh my God. All right, Narada, what's up?
Yo, what's up?
Hey, do you believe in God?
I do believe in God.
Neat. Like the Christian God?
No, I do not believe in the
Well, it's gone
a
south.
fake one.
Yeah.
Of course,
A fake one. I mean, I usually just like to kind of defend just an all good, all powerful God.
So the classic
yeah.
is gone.
Do you like to say bloody L?
Yeah. Or
Do I like this? I mean,
have
I'm
you
an
ever thought
American,
about
so
the
we don't
fact?
say
Have you ever thought about?
I feel like I saw that coming.
I can't imagine how you could have seen that coming.
Okay, so like you're here to defend that, or you just want to talk about something else?
Well, I mean,
All right.
What happened?
I mean, I'm probably doing that too.
Oh, sorry, you went out of the app, so we didn't
If
hear
you,
you. Time.
yeah.
Oh shit, sorry. Yeah, I guess my question was, you know, of course, I mean, I have my own arguments, but I guess my question is, where do you think consciousness comes from as an agnostic? I mean, don't know.
Admittedly, like Dr. Truth has like cooked me on the conscious thing like a ton of times. And, like,
You got cooked by Dr. Truth?
yeah, like
Dude,
okay.
that dude is smart as fuck.
Well, no.
What?
Have you met Dr. Truth?
I guess
He's a
I
nice
haven't.
guy.
I mean, I
Not even a
text
nice
him,
guy.
He has beautiful blue eyes.
He's got. He's got the most stunning blue eyes. Zach, come back. Where's
Oh, that's
Zach?
funny.
Gone.
Well, anyway, what were you saying,
He's
host?
gone.
I'm saying like my knowledge on consciousness could be better, but I'm just gonna say that consciousness is just a byproduct of the brain and something that the brain produces. But like I don't really
What's
know
the
a
argument for
lot.
that?
I don't know it.
Oh, okay,
But,
great.
I do need to look into like the problem of consciousness, and like Dr. Truth brings that up all the time, and like
I like talking
Yeah, I mean,
to
it's
be honest.
Premise 1. I have brain and am conscious. Premise 2. If you
Conscious.
stab my brain with screwdriver, I'm no longer conscious.
I don't know.
Conclusion.
Well, it depends on where you hit
Consciousness
it.
is from
But
my
yeah.
brain.
I just
Oh, that's a really good science of the
realistically-
gaps right there.
we know like I just think that like the human body
Science of the gaps.
like hold on, the human body has a brain, right? And the brain fires off neurons, sending messages all over our body. Well, no, our body is sending messages to our brain, and like the neurons are producing things, and like I don't know, like that's how we're conscious.
Okay, all right, great.
Wait.
I don't have like
Yeah.
a proper explanation for it, and I'm tired.
Can I
Sure,
get
there's signal transduction all over in your cells.
what you
and
call me?
You can interact with different inputs of proteins on different cells, and you can categorize that information because we made a biological hard drive for it.
Like our brain is gonna create our thoughts. Our brain is
What a
gonna
nerd.
like our brain is basically gonna create our thoughts and like tell us when we're in danger and like produce consciousness. And I don't really know the inner workings, but neurons are firing off, messages are being sent, and our brain is kind of
Well,
like
you
the
s-
hard drive to our whole operation.
It's brains.
What you saying it produces consciousness is like an assumption.
I guess a physicalist would have consciousness. So because like you have all
But
these
like,
problems and you're making
you
more
agreed.
inferences.
You agreed with me. You agreed with me earlier that in your hypothetical, right? Even from like this view, you already agreed that there's an external world around you.
This external world is other mental states. Mental states look like matter.
What?
From a second person perspective. For example, like your brain, when I look at your brain, it looks like matter to me. But I know that there's something it's like to be that matter.
When have you
right?
ever looked at someone else's brain?
You never seen a brain?
Not in person.
Well, you know, I mean, okay. If I were to cut open your skull and look at your brain, I know
That's
that
what I
there
mean.
is
Have you
something
been
that's
doing
like to
that?
be that.
That seems a little.
Okay.
When you're talking about like this idealism, right? Are you talking like a Berkeleyan type of idealism or a Hegelian type of idealism?
I don't know. I listened to Bernardo and read Bernardo Castro.
Have you
Analytic
read
idealism.
any other? Okay, have you read any other philosophers? Because Castro has like a very particular view in terms of idealism. Like, have you read
Right.
other philosophers in terms of like their notions of idealism as well?
Just Walter Russell and Bernardo Castro. So I glean my worldview a mixture of those two. I think they've got it right. But you know, the physical has to make more
if I'm understanding Castro correctly, right? He posits something that like the entire universe is going to be like some like cosmic
Mental.
mind, right?
Yeah, and basically what we are, what life is, quote unquote life, is what dissociation of the one mind looks like. That's what that process of dissociation looks like. It looks like a metabolizing body.
So you're saying that's illusory?
Well, like one of the things that's unclear though in this version of like Castro is how like individual experiences are gonna align so consistently in order to
What do you
form
mean?
some type of shared stable reality. Like for
Sorry,
example,
what do you
why
mean
are
align?
multiple why are multiple observers perceiving the same object and phenomena?
Because we're dissociated.
And
Like for example,
but that
like
doesn't really
in dissociative
answer the
identity
question
disorder,
in terms
right? In dissociative identity disorder, there's multiple alters of mind, and I get they studied it now, where it's just like the person's having the dream, and they've all experienced their own perspective of the dream. So
Exactly.
I mean, we don't know
Yeah.
why
So like
we don't know why mind
in this
dissociates.
notion,
Go ahead.
in this notion of disassociation, right, on the basis of like individuality, what Kashyap is saying that is like these individual minds are going to be like localized or disassociated entities, if you will.
Yeah, kind of like a
of
whirlpool
like
in a lake.
Right. But like that doesn't explain though how if your mind is like some type of disassociated entity as mine is, why is it that we're able to like look at reality and share some kind of stable reality? Like when you look at
Because we're seeing,
you know, a ball in front of you and I'm looking at the same ball in front of you, if we're two disassociated localized minds, how are we seeing the same thing?
right, because we're seeing the mind at large. So I think that there is something to be the universe as a whole, and the whole universe of matter is the body or the image of that mental process. So we're dissociated from that one mind. So we can see kind of, it's like the universe looking at itself, body or the image of that mental process. So we're dissociated from that one mind. So we can see kind of, it's like the universe looking at itself. We're just, it's a dissociative aspect of it, but
That doesn't answer how your localized experience is going to match my localized experience.
because we're all seeing the same mind at large, the one mind at large.
How is everything?
Well, what explains that your experience is going to be the same as my experience and this whole like, you know, notion that we're disassociated entities?
Why I experienced the same car you were experiencing, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Why do we experience it? Because what do you mean? We're seeing the world around us, like that, which is the image of mind at large? I don't understand. Maybe I don't understand what you're saying.
We're not though, because you're saying it's localized. If there's some kind of shared experience between Jim and I, i.e., the ball, right? Then like, I'm not sure how that's possible under like this localized association.
It's kind of like I don't know, ripples on a lake or like a whirlpool on a lake. There's a distinction, but there's nothing to like the whirlpool but the water. They're just distinction. They're just excitations of the lake, and we're just excitations of the one mind. We're all just composed of the same subatomic particles, right?
Well, how's
So it's just a
there
different
like I'm not sure how
Hmm?
there's like a distinction in this view. Like if
Well,
we're all
there's a
just if
seeming
we're all
there's a seeming distinction,
well, okay, so you're saying it's illusory then.
like ripples on a
Yeah,
lake.
like what explains if the external world or everything around us does not exist, and it's
It does
only
exist.
existing. Well, you're saying that it
Saying it's
only exists
illusory.
insofar as it's the experience that we're
Seems
having,
like
right?
it.
And
No,
yeah, it
no. It's not
seems as
as
if
you
though it's
experience.
there, but it's not there.
No. The world goes around. I think there's quality. When I'm gone here, there's going to be quality out there. There is a world out there, but that world are just transpersonal mental processes.
Okay, well then it's not purely
Every
localized.
Yeah, then
When you say maybe I
then
don't
it's not.
understand
It
what you mean by
doesn't.
localized. Sorry, maybe I'm not understanding what you. I thought it was just like
Well, I mean,
maybe I
this is
don't understand
Kastrup's
localized.
view, right? Kastrup's view when he's talking about localized dissociative entities is that, like, these individual
Like
minds kind of
localized meaning like a whirlpool in a lake. It's like localized there, but there's something happening to the there's a distinction happening, but it's all just water. But there's like, you understand what I'm saying? But it's localized there.
How many molecules of water does it take to get a whirlpool?
No,
Do you know what I mean?
like if you're just saying like you said earlier something about like the foundation of all things is subjective experience.
Right.
Correct. Okay. So like if that's the foundation, being that we're like localized disassociative beings at this point, I'm not sure how we're having a shared common experience of reality. Like it doesn't
how is that
really make
explained?
sense. Like even in this notion that like you're saying the foundation of all things, right, is the
Yeah. All
subjective experience. Well, that's a universal. So I don't know how
right.
that would even in just your notion of subjective experience, that would be a universal experience.
Right.
So
Right.
that
I
to
think there
me
is something
seems that seems like a contradiction.
I think there is something that's like to be the universe as a whole.
Okay, well how
Like
can
there's
something
something that's like to
be
be.
how can something be thus I guess universal and subjective?
I don't know. How can it be universal and subjective? Why can't it be? I don't understand. When you say universal, meaning like everything.
Well,
How
you
can
are
something be
saying that
everything? And
subjective experience is everything. You're making
that's the
a
foundation of
universal
reality. Yeah.
claim. That's a
Yeah. Well,
that's a universal. That's not a subjective. So
I don't know.
I'm
I guess I don't know.
trying to
What's the difference between
I really
universal and
don't
subject? I think.
understand that like if you're saying it's illusory in some way because we're only seeming to see these things, right? Subjective
No.
experience.
We're not seeming to see these things. We are seeing there is an actual world outside.
Okay, well there's an
So then when I
external
asked you
world.
before, yeah, like when I asked you before that we agree that there is some external world outside of us, right, that's objectively existing, you were like, no, that external world is actually your subjective experience that materializes as like
No. I never said that. No, not materialized. Doesn't matter. I said like we're seeing the description of mind thinking. Like that
Great.
tree.
So
I guess
do
I'm
you
seeing
agree?
there
Do you
is a
agree?
mind thinking.
So you do agree that there is an external world that exists objectively?
Yeah, and those are
Okay,
images of
perfect.
mental processes. Yeah.
What do you mean they're images of mental processes?
Just like how your brain it's all okay. All matter is
Let's
made
say
of
let's
the
say
same
let's say there
subatomic
were
particles, right?
let's say there were no humans in order to have some kind of like sense experience. Would the external world still exist?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're in agreement, right? Because this conversation or this kind of like trail of the dialectic stemmed from the fact that we were trying to see whether the hypothesis was more parsimonious, right? In the two different views, Kastrup is he has a monist view, but what he thinks is fundamental is consciousness, right? Whereas like in a physicalist view, they're going to just take that something is a fundamental is going to be physical, right? And so where do you think that that hypothesis or that theory is going to be more parsimonious over the physicalist view?
Well, like, okay, I think the physicalist or the idealist, I think that we all agree that the universe has to be eternal. Could I be wrong there? Whatever reality
It
is, it has to
depends.
be
I mean,
eternal.
like, yeah.
Because we can't,
Yeah, I mean,
okay, infinite regress is out the window. Something coming from nothing is out the window.
Infinite regress is not out the window.
Oh no, we're gonna go down this road.
Well, when you say
but
infinite
yeah.
regress, do you mean an infinite chain of different causes?
We've been
An
here
infinite
before.
chain of
We've talked
causes.
about this.
Doesn't
Huh?
matter if they're different.
Well, I'm
It's
saying
irrelevant.
because if it's an infinite regress of the same cause, then it's not an infinite regress. It's the same cause. So because you want to explain things we were explaining things in terms of something else forever in an infinite regress. So
An infinite regress of causes is not illogical. There's no contradiction in that.
And the
Right.
causes
But are
don't have to
these
be the
causes
same.
different? These causes are different every time, right?
Yeah, there's still no contradiction in this.
Right. So, but that doesn't actually explain anything. If you're saying a different cause caused that, and a completely, in essence, ontologically different cause caused that, you never end up explaining anything. So that theory lacks explanatory power.
No, so what you're doing here is you're having a problem where you're saying it lacks a beginning. Of course it lacks a beginning.
No, doesn't lack a beginning.
That's what you're talking about when you talk explanatory. When you're saying explanatory cause, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about initial cause. That's what you're saying with explanatory.
Not an initial cause. No, I'm
That's
saying
exactly what
you're not
explanatory cause means in this case. In an infinite regress, there is none. It simply is the case that it continues.
Of a completely different cause after the other forever.
Yeah, there's
You never
no
end up
contradiction
actually
held in
explaining
that
something
statement at all.
But you never end up actually going to the fundamental and actually explain something. You never
Yes,
actually
because
will be
there
able
is
to
no
explain
beginning
something.
to an infinite regress. That's
So
right.
it has no so that theory has no explanatory power in my eyes.
It
but
does have
anyways, you can
explanatory
think
power.
that.
It does not have an initiating
again,
cause.
It's the principle of sufficient reason. Do you have an argument against the PSR, Matthew?
I would think that would. Yeah, I mean, there's
I
definitely
wasn't talking
arguments against
PSR, was I? I was just
Yeah,
saying there's
you
no
are talking
contradiction.
PSR. So if Just Jim
Brooke,
has an
when
argument
I'm
against the
answering your
PSR, we'd like
question,
to hear it.
it's usually easier to hear what I have to say rather than just start
No,
talking again.
no, Matthew. Literally,
So I'm going to
we
answer
are
the question
talking
you
about the
asked me.
PSR.
I wasn't discussing the PSR. I was simply stating
Yes, you
that
are.
Brooke,
Here we go.
I'm in the middle of my sentence.
But the thing
I
is,
am
you are
not
discussing
the PSR. You are discussing the PSR. Only thing I said was that there is no illogical position held with discussing an infinite regress. There's
Sure,
no
it could be
there's no
logical.
contradiction held there. That's all I said.
Right. So let's go with that. Let's say,
If
okay,
you're
well,
looking
what
for
is
an
the
explanation of where the causes come from, you're talking about an origin. You're talking about an initial state. There's no initial state to an infinite regress, so that's an irrelevant question.
So either the universe is eternal, or and I think that's, I don't know. Is that the only two options we have? So far, I think that's the only two options we have. And so, does anyone agree? Who agrees is eternal?
Yeah, you're absolute. I mean, that's true.
Or we can say there's an unknown position, right?
Well, that's
something
not.
that hasn't been thought of.
Okay, well, I'm trying to postulate. Okay, what is the best theory on the table right now? Can you think of any other idea? Because I can't.
I use B theory of time to discuss a cyclic universe, but that's completely
Maybe
different.
there's finite universes that belong to an infinite multiverse.
Yeah,
You
theory of time.
You need an explanation for your infinite causal chain of physical events, Matthew.
That's the category error. There is no
By
initial
what you
explanation
mean-
to an infinite cause of events.
By
An
what you
infinite chain
mean
of
by
events would not
explanation
have
is
an
like
initiation.
a first cause, right? You have
an
to. You have
explanation or
if your
a first
causes,
cause.
what you're saying is, Matthew, if your causes don't bottom out, I'm not going to accept them.
No. First causes only apply to physical objects.
An infinite
what are you
regress
asking
will
for?
never come to that point because it
what do
never
you mean?
has an origination. You can't ask for what started an infinite regress. It doesn't have a
So
start.
if every event depends on a prior event of causes, what explains the infinite causal chain, Matthew?
Wait.
It
Well,
wouldn't
why does
have
one
an
need to?
explanation
What?
for an infinite causal change because there is no start to an infinite causal chain.
So you have no
You
explanation
understand
for an
that
infinite
category
causal
error
Wait,
you're
chain.
making
why
here,
does
right?
why does the whole chain need an explanation?
Because it's physical things. So they have causes.
So what?
Yes,
Yeah,
So,
it
so
has
that
an
and the
means that
causes
infinite
mean.
physical
series
things
of
have causes.
causes.
Wait,
Yes,
hold on.
it has an
And so
infinite
if it's an
series of
infinite
causes.
set of causal things,
Wait, hold on,
Where's the
Pro. Did you
contradiction?
say the first
Hold on a
cause had
second.
to be physical?
you said what?
Did you say the first cause had to be physical?
No, I don't
He's
believe
saying an
that.
infinite
It seems like
physical
you
chain
guys
of
believe
causes
that.
requires a start, which is a category error. I'm sorry, you can't ask for the
So,
start of an infinite set.
so I guess we're both saying the universe is eternal, right? Either way,
Either
infinite
way, yeah, it
regress or
would
just
be
eternal.
eternal to me just means for all time, and as long as you have something existing,
Right.
it's in a state of existence. There's a measurable amount of time. That's
Right.
fine. It
So
works for me.
we the universe is eternal. So whatever's eternal has to be unchanging, correct?
No, it can be in a cyclic system of change. There's no reason it would have to
No,
be
but
unchanging.
the definition of eternal means no beginning, no end. To say that there's a change, you're suggesting a
The
point in
definition of
time when
eternal
you're
would
changing
be it
of the
exists in
beginning and
all
ending.
points of time, Gabe. It exists
Yeah,
for all
for
points
all
in time.
It does not
Eternal means
mean
unchanging.
Eternal and infinite are two different concepts.
it does not mean
Exactly.
static either.
Yeah, no, eternal means
If
that. Look it up. I mean, you can Google it.
Yeah, eternal does not mean static.
Something can be eternal and have a starting point. Like it.
No,
Yes.
that's
It-
that's not the definition of eternal.
No.
If time starts, then something can exist
Go
for
into
all of
eternity.
time.
Yes.
Relative to time, it would be eternal.
Yeah.
Infinite means there is no bound.
Well,
It's not
like
bounded.
an example is
Exactly.
like when people say energy is eternal, they are saying that energy is finite. That in that sense that the amount of energy is finite, right? But there's no starting point, and so that's fine.
Yeah, these are just
You can say that energy is
category
finite.
error after category error here. What part of energy is eternal? It exists eternally, or that there's an infinite amount of it. These are
Energy is
completely
not
different
infinite,
causes.
right? That's not the understanding in science, at least, and so it's eternal.
That's an unknown concept. You do understand that, right?
So if it's eternal, that means it's finite.
Look, we're
like,
using these terms.
Eternal
in
does not
different
mean
kind of
finite.
like.
yes, it does.
No,
Energy
Guys,
is a
hold on,
finite
hold on,
amount.
hold
It's
on,
not
hold
an
on.
infinite amount.
Brooke, hold on. Go ahead, Jim.
You understand that we're using these terms in like different scopes, right? Like
Yeah,
first we're
and it's
talking about
frustrating.
we're talking about eternal and infinite within like some type of metaphysical concept, not scientific concept. Right? When we're talking about eternal in metaphysics, we're talking about something that exists outside of time or something that's timeless. Whereas infinite is just going to be something that's just boundless or like immeasurable. And so infinite doesn't necessarily mean eternal. That's the whole point that I was trying to make.
I agree with you. And my whole point was that energy is a finite amount.
Can you define energy for me, Brooke?
I mean, that's kind of complicated.
It's not. It's a very short definition, and if you don't know what it is, you really shouldn't be saying you know what energy is or how much of it there is.
Isn't it just the ability to do work?
It's the capacity to do work, yeah. It's not even a thing. It's a concept.
So anyway, look, I googled it. Can something eternal change? And AI overview says no. By definition, something that is eternal cannot change, as eternal means lasting forever without end or alteration. Therefore, if something is truly eternal, it cannot undergo any change.
But
Well, I don't use. I would never add the without alteration because that just is nonsensical to me on that front. I could say that
where's your
reality has
definition?
existed eternally because as long as time has existed, reality has existed, and reality
Okay,
continually
but where'd you get
changes.
your definition, though? Where'd you get your definition?
I'm telling you how I am normatively using it right now.
So you're defining it.
That's what I meant when I said eternal. That's what I'm
Okay,
telling you.
so
I
yeah, I
am
guess we
not
can all
using
define things
unchanging.
differently. I know,
So
but like I guess
we can.
to like the world, I guess, or to Google, it means unchanging. So
Okay, cool. So in this context, that's not what I mean. Because if I'm talking about something existing eternally, as far as our reality is concerned, we see our reality changing constantly. There's no reason should consider it to be static. It would make no
right,
sense
so
in this
that
context.
okay, right. So that's always changing, right? Like our reality is constantly changing. So I think maybe what's going on is a constant state of change of a one unchanging substance, and I just liken it to like water on the lake. It's
Water's
a
continuously changing,
constant.
though.
No, I'm saying there's the water, right, which is the one substance, never changing. Just like how water changes state from liquid, gas to solid.
Water
It's a change
changes
of
all the
state.
time. Have
No,
you
no,
heard
I'm
of
saying
hydration and
there's a
dehydration
one
reactions?
substance.
If you would
No,
like
no,
me to
say what I'm
give
saying.
an example of something I would say is unchanging, is that something continuously exists. There's never a point
No, I
of
know.
non-existence. That's the only
I'm using
unchanging
this.
part I would use.
I'm using this as an
If you're
analogy.
using
So
that as the
all that exists.
analogy, I'd say reality is the water. It just exists, and then whatever ripples and changes occur are
Right.
just happening with the water. Fine,
Different
I'm
states.
perfectly fine with that.
Right,
But
exactly. And so just because it changes change of state doesn't entail a change of substance, right? Like liquid, gas, solid. It's all just the
yeah,
same as water.
reality would
And so I
always
think
be
that's
What do you
reality.
think it means when it like
yeah.
a hydrogen attaches to like a water molecule and it becomes hydronium? Do you think it changes? Is hydronium the same thing as water?
I think he's
You're not
being
getting my
a lot
analogy.
more metaphorical with this
Yeah,
analogy
you're not getting my
than that.
analogy.
He's not being that specific with it. As
I'm
the
very
water
literal.
always exists in the lake, reality always exists around us. But all the
Yeah,
stuff
and
in reality might be in flux, but reality is constant.
right, yeah. And so cuz everything in reality comes and goes. It appears and disappears,
Changes form.
right? It's like right, but it almost like appears from nothing, seemingly nothing, right? Kind of just like sound comes from silence and goes back to silence, right?
I wouldn't agree with any of that. These are subtle changes in form. We need to look into them to be able to understand the changes in form, but it's never from nothing.
But let me. No, it's not from nothing. Seemingly nothing. I say maybe I should say formless. Like, would you say like the tone A exists even though you're not hearing it? Like, if you listen to music and then turn it off, would you say music doesn't exist anymore?
The
No, right?
physical representation of molecules colliding in a gas or in a solid that we pick up and register as sound, all those things exist objectively. Our subjective experience that we call that tone is the process of our brain.
Exactly. Like what if we say like all the trees go away in the world? Would you say trees don't exist anymore? No, you wouldn't because you've experienced a tree before. You know it exists in potentiality.
Well, I could say
Anymore? No, you wouldn't because you've experienced a tree before. You know it exists in potentiality.
Just
Just
they
like
no
I don't
longer
think
exist.
No, they do exist. Just like they're not
No,
actualized. Just
memory of them does.
no, potentiality of them does.
Oh, I don't
Right?
say that's the same as existence.
I think yeah, potentiality is all that exists, and everything is just
I
an
think that's
image of that
nonsensical.
potential. Well, would you if you can't hear
If
the
I make
tone
a
A,
unique
would you
piece
say
of
the tone
art,
A doesn't exist?
if I make a unique piece of art and bring it into existence as a unique piece of art and then completely dismantle and destroy it, does that unique piece of art still exist? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. The
Absolutely not.
idea
It's gone.
the idea always existed.
That's
That
not what
came
we're
from the
talking about.
idea.
We're talking about the
The
unique piece of
painter,
art, not the
I know,
idea of the unique piece of art, the art itself, the object
right,
itself. That would be the
but the
same with the
music is not
trees.
based.
The trees themselves no longer exist. The idea of a tree, the concept of a tree, the definition of a tree would still exist, but that's all just words. The tree itself does not exist.
Right, just like the composer is not the composition. Like kind of like the composer is the reality. The song or whatever is the reality. What you hear is just like a simulation of the reality, right?
No, no.
I guess you understand what I'm saying. Like you're saying, if like, all trees go away, you would say trees don't exist. That's what you would say, right?
I would say they no
Even
longer exist. Just like I can
long, but
right
they
now
can't.
say that the
Right.
Tyrannosaurus Rex as a species no longer exists. It is extinct. We have evidence of its past existence.
Like
We
if
have
we cut
knowledge of
down,
what it was.
if we cut down every tree that existed and pounded it into paper, trees would no longer exist.
But I wouldn't walk there saying that, oh, trees don't exist. I know trees exist. Just because I'm not seeing one, let's just say you don't see a
You
tree. Are
having
you going to say
knowledge
trees
of
don't
hold
exist?
on, but you having knowledge of a tree doesn't mean that that's the tree.
Your knowledge is what a
I
tree
think
used to be. There are
no. I
no
think,
current trees to be anything.
You having a
but
knowledge
I
or
know.
memory of the tree doesn't make it the tree existing. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think like for example, like the plant kingdom
I'm
exists
agreeing
in
with Matthew.
potentiality,
Because
and just
because we
because it's
actually have some fairly decent common sense, even if we disagree
I'm
theologically.
kidding.
Wait, what the heck? Wit and Matthew are agreeing? Oh my
We
god,
do
did
this a
Jesus come
lot,
back?
Coco. We
We
do
do it
this
a
a
lot.
lot.
Holy
It's
shit.
fine. Go ahead, Gabe. Go. I'm sorry.
God damn.
The same joke gets made every time too.
I just want to. I know we've like completely moved on, but I did just kind of want to share because me and Gabe are kind of the same team. I do not share this worldview at all.
Yeah, you're gonna be a
I
little
just
bit different from him. That's for sure.
I actually did
I'm
want
a
to get
theist.
onto the brain thing. That's the reason I wanted to come up here. The idea of consciousness and the brain and emergent properties. I discuss this a lot. It's really not as complicated as people tend to make it out to be.
I
I'm gonna
regret
be
my
honest.
consciousness.
I
Every
do a
time
lot as well, Slurms.
I'm gonna be honest. Every time we talk about
Yours
consciousness,
specifically.
I'm gonna be honest.
Thanks.
Every time we talk about consciousness, I get my ass kicked in some way or another. I don't know why.
Look,
Well,
unless
it's really easy. You just need to start with what is consciousness. You have
It's
to agree
probably
with what
where
is consciousness first.
it's probably because all you do is play fucking video games.
Yeah, click,
What do you
click, click,
mean?
click, and then go, yeah.
Oh,
unless an
Yeah,
atheist here
maybe
wants to
you
make an
should
argument
fucking read
against.
for once, Coco.
Yeah, maybe you should fucking
Oh, it's
read.
that time of the night. We're
Okay,
gonna start
first off,
dunking on Coco.
I'm streaming to YouTube, so I have to play video games while having these discussions.
I'm sorry, that's
Huh?
a necessity notion.
Wow.
Yeah,
This
because
is
people
this
are
is
bored.
what they do.
It does.
You're the only one
assist
that's
in
bored with your
viewership.
lives. You don't you don't pay attention. You just play games.
I mean, like most of the time I do, but today, like, no, not really.
Okay, what was the last thing we said?
I don't know.
Well, let me see if I can run through this consciousness thing real
Matthew.
quick.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead with proof, whatever.
My excuse for not paying attention today is because before this live, I was on a present live, so I'm like recovering.
Hey, Matt.
Pretty much.
Hello?
Get it
So,
going.
When I'm talking consciousness, I'm literally just talking about awareness of self and surroundings, and how that is illustrated as a subjective experience, right? When we talk about the hard problem of consciousness, a lot of people misrepresent what the hard problem of consciousness is, and they make it sound like we have no way of understanding anything about the emergence of consciousness, and that's just not the case. The problem of consciousness is split into two positions: the easy problem of consciousness and the hard problem of consciousness. Now, the easy problem of consciousness is explained by neuroscience quite easily. It just discusses how these processes give us enough information to form a conscious experience. It talks about perception, attention, memory, and behavior, and all the stimuli and the functions that are stuck within that.
Wait.
The only thing the
which
hard
problem?
problem of
Which problem is the easy one again?
that is how these things happen, how we have awareness, how we have
No,
sensory
I wanted
input.
you to.
That is how these things happen, how we have awareness, how
Oh,
we have
no, I
sensory
wanted you
input
to. I
and
wanted you to
attention.
say the easy problem, and I was gonna go. Oh, that's right.
Oh, that is the easy problem.
Oh, if that's the easy problem, then you guys are screwed.
Now, the hard problem of consciousness, it's not. I just explained. All that is how we recognize objects, how we focus on things, how the brain stores information, and how we react to stimuli. That's all like brain-related activities. We know how that happens.
Yeah,
Those are already solved
we're seeing
for.
images of brain states, right?
Yeah,
But
all
it's
of that's
just
already
we're seeing a
solved for.
correlation. Well,
Now, the
we
hard
haven't
problem
gone
of
to causation yet.
consciousness, yeah, the hard problem of consciousness, that's the one that is still unexplained. And I honestly think it's funny because the hard problem of consciousness is, why does this lead to a subjective first person experience and not something like a just a processing information experience, like an internal processing of information experience like a computer would have?
Wait,
That's
so
the only thing, is why are we experiencing it in the way we are experiencing it, not how it's happening, not where it's coming
Like
from.
a computer wouldn't have an experience. You're just trying to say how does the experience
Oh
emerge
yeah,
from?
it's just an analogy that's used as a comparison. Because we process information, a computer processes information. Why do we have a subjective experience in the way we do that's internal rather than just
Oh,
flat information processing, right? And a
Ronaldo
why doesn't
Castro.
matter. A why is irrelevant. What we need to know is how, and we have all that information.
wait,
Knowing
can we
purpose
just
doesn't
wait,
mean
is it relevant?
knowing purpose doesn't mean anything.
Why is the cause of it? Is it relevant, or the why is irrelevant? I don't know about that.
The why would be simply, why is it a personal experience rather than just information processing? That's irrelevant. We know
No,
that
that's the whole
No, you
that's
don't.
the whole
all right,
thing. That's the whole point. That's
if
the
you
main
stop me
point.
from saying why it's irrelevant, you'll never know why it's irrelevant. Every time I say it, you stop me from talking. It's irrelevant because the way we experience things doesn't matter to having the experience. We know we have the experience. That's a known position, right? It could be that our experience was simply that of a processor, like a computer, or any other means of getting through information. But our current system is that we have a subjective, personal, internal experience. It's just what we know. It's what we see. It's what we observe. The why, the reason why, doesn't change that ever. How it happens, we know all of that, every single piece of it. We know
No,
how we
you
take
don't.
in information through sensory organs. We know how that information is transmitted through our body, through our central nervous system. We know how that information is correlated, stored, recalled, processed. All these things we know. We know the specific brain states that are required for them, how this happens. We can discuss neuroplasticity. We can discuss neural networking. We can discuss sodium potassium pumps and how neurons fire. We can discuss all these things. The hows are all lined up like ducks in a row. We know all those things. So we do know that the brain is the position where these experiences come from. We just don't know why the experience is the experience it is, rather than a different
Think
experience.
Well,
And that
I
doesn't
think
I don't think
change
I'd just
where
like to
it
point
comes from.
out that, like, and I'm gonna have a different view from Narada or Gabe as far as like my faith in God and all these things, but like even from this perspective, like, look, we even scientifically we can see how like certain parts of our body, right, receive information and those things, right?
Yeah.
That's all fine. Even under my view, that's not a problem, right? Like all
Yeah.
of that makes sense even under my view, right? So I think like even the view that I have of like the soul and the body and those things, which is gonna be very different from Matthew, like none about what the scientific, what we've learned of our bodies and these things contradicts such a view. I have no real problem with that, right? But like he's just like Matthew simply pointing out like the why are these things happening? Now, I could say there's some explanation as to why that's the case under my view, right? But even if like, Matthew's like saying, well, maybe that's just something we don't know yet. Like maybe at some point we may be able to figure that out. But I think I'm just wanted before like the spurging happened where you're just like, no. Like I'm just telling you it's not a problem, at least
Oh
like
yeah, it's
under
definitely
my
not.
particular view as far as that
It
goes.
has no, there's no problems with what I'm saying against like a
so.
theistic system at all.
Right. Yeah.
So like brain function and perceptual experience are correlated. Yes,
No,
but it does
there's
not necessarily.
causation. There's causation that's shown.
No,
Not
no. Like
knowing
we
why
don't
the
know.
experience is
No,
in the
no,
way it is does
no.
not
We don't know.
negate from the causation.
No, the hard problem is consciousness is we don't know how
Yeah.
arrangements of subatomic particles generates subjective experience.
That
We don't know
doesn't
how
stop
that
us from
happens.
knowing the caasation, though,
Yes, it
at
does.
all.
No,
No,
Well,
it
if
doesn't. And
no,
you
it
I'm
does.
going
We
to
don't know how
explain
that
why, but
happens.
you
no,
actually have
listen,
to allow
hold
me
on,
to get to that point first.
well,
You actually have to let me give you the information that shows it. Just saying no every time I try to give you information is never going to like get past this issue. I'm actually going to give you like documented physical evidence of these things. Okay. So we know that when we're talking about awareness of self and surroundings, certain requirements are there on the table. We require a way to take in information. We require a way to transmit that information. We require a way to process that information. Taking in that information is going to be your sensory organs, any physical sensory organ you have. That's the only ways we have to take in information. The transmission of that information is your central nervous system. And then the processing of that information is going to be through your brain. This is going to be through things like memory and the processing of that information. So this is going to have to do with memory formation processes like encoding, storage, and retrieval. It's going to have to do with the types of memory and their storage locations, like sensory memory, short-term memory, long-term memory, things that are stored in the prefrontal cortex or the parietal lobes, the work of the neocortex and the hippocampus, and how that's associated with memory, and how these memories are like processed through your sleep states, and how these involve like your basal ganglia or your cerebellum or
Those
your
are
amygdala. All
those
these
are
things are
arrangements of
known.
subatomic.
Yes,
Those are
we know
arrangements
how
of
they
subatomic
work.
particles, right? Certain arrangements of subatomic particles.
Much
Yeah.
more than just subatomic particles. These are very specific neural
Everything is made out of
systems.
subatomic particles.
Yes, and then that's why that's a kind of a useless way to say, because if
So
everything
these
is
are
made
just
out of
arrangements.
subatomic particles,
Yeah.
it doesn't actually explain anything. Those
Well, you,
subatomic particles are arranged into atoms, which are arranged into molecules, which are
right.
arranged into much more complicated systems like cells or neurons or
Yes, but
proteins
you're
Yeah,
still
or
not
other
but so the thing
explaining
is,
neurochemicals.
how.
And we understand how these molecules, cells, and systems interact together to have
Right.
an effect. So we
right.
understand memory, we understand the processing
But
of the memory, we understand all these things. And from understanding that we have our experiences because of those actions, we can then test if changing those physical structures has a direct impact on concepts like consciousness, on concepts like awareness, on concepts like the mental state. Easiest way to do that is go through medical science and look at how changes to a physical brain cause changes to things like cognition or consciousness.
exactly.
The
Yeah,
best way
yeah,
to
yeah.
do that is to go
You're seeing
through and look at studies done on lobotomies from the 1930s all the way through the 1970s and see we have documented studies and evidence to show that changes
right
to
brain.
these brain functions cause changes to conscious state.
Right,
And we
exactly,
understand
exactly,
that,
100%,
and this
100%. The
shows
brain
that
function.
consciousness derives from the physical
No,
structure
no,
of the
that doesn't
brain.
Yeah,
necessarily.
but so the
That does
problem
not
I have with
necessarily
that is,
imply.
mind if I go, Gabe? Um,
Good.
so two things I have a problem with that. One, I didn't hear in Matthew in your explanation the causation or the process of physical processes bringing about what something feels like for somebody.
Yeah, you're
Like,
asking the why it has a feeling. I already said that's the hard problem of conscious. That's the one
No,
thing
the
that's not
how.
no,
explained.
I said
Not the
how though.
why,
The
not the why, the
process.
how.
Oh, the
The
how?
cause, the
Yeah,
cause, the cause of
sure.
it. Yeah, the
Yeah,
cause.
that again, I did. I told you that's going to be
No,
through
that's not.
perception, how we recognize objects, attention, how we focus on things, memory, how the brain stores information, and behavior, how we react to the stimuli. All four of those things can be broken down into their individual components, and you can discuss individual portions of the brain that are responsible to them. It's not going to be one thing for each of them either. There's going to be
Exactly,
multiple
exactly.
parts of the brain that are responsible for perception, multiple parts of the brain
Right,
that are
right.
Well,
responsible
here's a
for
thought
attention,
experiment.
and multiple things that are associated to memory. And remember, I actually did give you very specifics on memory when I started talking about things like the hippocampus and the
Right, right. Brain
neocortex, right?
function, yes, brain
So
function and
yes, I
perceptual
did give
experience are
specifics on this.
correlated. Those are definitely good correlations, but it doesn't necessarily imply
No,
that
those
brain
aren't, that's
function is
not
the same as
correlation,
or
Yes,
dude.
it
caused
is.
by conscious. Yes, it is.
That is not correlation.
Well, we wouldn't be having
I'm
this
giving you the
conversation.
You're seeing a
causes of
you're seeing
memory.
you're seeing a correlation when somebody has a memory. You're seeing a correlated brain state, a certain brain state
That
correlated with that memory. Yes,
no. That is not correlation. I am literally describing the
you're seeing.
process of memory. This is
But you're not.
causation.
But you're not describing the process of what that feels like.
Again, that's the hard problem of consciousness And that subjective experience, and why we have a subjective experience rather than just an analytical experience or a data gathering processing experience like a computer does, that's unknown. But it's also irrelevant because we know we have that experience and we know why we have these memory states. We have the causation for the memory. Why we experience memory the way we do doesn't change the fact we know why we have memory.
Okay. So Matthew, in your worldview, matter is fundamental. So do you think this matter is it like eternal?
It's changed state over time, but at
Is
a
it
base
eternal?
level, what exists has always existed.
Okay, so it's eternal. It's all this.
We already discussed this, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the way the brain processes information.
I'm gonna take. I guess we should all take
That's
that
just a pivot as far as I'm
everything
concerned.
he said about the brain. Like, what was
Just
that?
completely ran away from it.
Wait,
Ran away from
Matthew,
what?
do you think that energy is the uncaused cause?
No, energy is a concept. It's a property, not a thing.
So it's not a physical thing?
No, energy is not a physical thing.
Okay. So if it's not a physical thing, then would you be willing to say that the material world came from an immaterial source?
No,
What?
because energy is derived from the physical. Energy is the capacity to do work. It's defined as the potential to make something move.
It's an
So-
imaginary value. It's
A physical
It's-
referent would always have to be there for energy to exist?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a time where there wasn't something physical.
Okay, so you think that physical things are eternal?
I do not think there has ever been a time where nothing existed.
Okay, but the definition
your
of
evidence for
eternal.
that?
What's your definition of eternal, Matthew? Like, is it unchanging?
What?
I know we're back
I
to
already
this
gave you
again.
this position like 3 times, dude. When I
Oh
am
yeah, you're
when
the
I am
one.
discussing with you,
That's right. You're the one
eternal
that
to
made up
me.
your definition.
Yeah, we all make up our
Do you
definitions.
remember
in
the-
this
made up
Okay, but you're
context.
making it up
Gabe,
though. You're making
Gabe,
it
don't
up.
you
not
remember
This
when
has nothing to
Jim
do
made
with
it
the
clear
brain,
that
Gabe.
we use eternal differently in different contexts? Like,
I-
why are
I
you
know, but
now?
the way
You're
the-
going back to hiding behind like.
Infinite and eternal are not interchangeable. There's not.
I don't know
But
why you're running away to something we talked about before instead of
Gabe,
discussing
like even
the brain
under.
states and how we understand them.
Let me just explain this. Like, I know you don't hold to the Christian worldview, but let's just explain this real quick. Eternality, right? Something can begin to exist, i.e., the soul, right? I have not always thus existed. Okay? Something can
Why should I
begin
accept
to
your guys'
exist. Hold on,
definition?
Gabe. Listen
Holy
to me.
fuck!
Over Google.
Listen. Like, I don't give a shit what Google has to say because
Google doesn't
it's
know the
The
context we're
specifically
talking
the
about.
AI
It's
overview.
fine. But listen to me. Listen. Like, my soul began to exist at a time and place, and it exists into eternity, right? It's eternal. It was created eternal. So it has a
Unfortunately.
beginning point and it's eternal. Yeah, whatever, Slurms. All I'm trying to say is that it's not synonymous with infinite. You keep making it synonymous.
Yeah, it turns out.
The funny
guess
thing
we're all
is
making
when
up
I
our
look up the
definitions, I
when I
don't
look
know.
up the
Holy
definition
fuck!
of
This guy's
eternal,
dumb.
when I look up the definition of eternal on Google, like you just said, the first part of the definition, the first definition is lasting or existing forever without end or beginning.
Yeah,
Period.
you are right. But
And
do you know
then
what eternal
similar,
versus
similar, everlasting, never ending, endless, without end, perpetual, undying. Then it goes on to say valid of all time, essentially unchanging.
Yeah. So
eternal?
Completely different
Sorry.
concepts, completely
Go ahead,
different
go ahead.
contexts.
something can
I
last.
don't know.
Something
Google-
can last
Google-
into eternity and still have a beginning.
Right.
Yes.
So since we've already illustrated that we can both Google the word and find multiple different definitions and then throw things around and go, I don't like the one you're using. I'm simply
Google.
going to say,
Well, I'll tell you what I
going to
Googled.
say, I'm going to ignore the word. I'm going to ignore the word eternal. I'm just going to throw it out. It's not a word I'm going to use anymore. And I'm going to say, I believe that our reality, the universe and reality we live in, is simply a state that has always existed without end or beginning.
Okay, do you have an argument for the fact that material things exist infinitely?
Yes.
Okay, what's the argument?
The state of nothingness is illogical, therefore something exists.
So that in itself establishes an infinite regress of physical objects?
Well, infinite regress isn't illogical by itself. You didn't ask me to substantiate an infinite regress. You asked me to say why I don't
Okay,
think
if
there
I
was
didn't
ever
ask you
nothing
that, that's
instead
what
of
I meant,
something.
right? Like,
Oh, you want me to
substantiate an
defend
infinite
an infinite
regress.
regress?
Mhm.
Sure, I see no contradictions held with the term infinite regress, therefore I can accept it as a truth.
What explains the chain of causes, the infinite
You
causes?
cannot ask for a beginning of an
So
infinite
like,
chain.
Prek, instead of like asking
I don't
some-
I don't think that he's
No,
asking
no,
for
I'm just asking what explains that chain.
Itself. An infinite chain is explained by itself.
But it's just all infinite causes. How can it
Oh my
explain
Because it
God.
has no beginning. It has nothing prior to it to cause it to exist. It is its own cause of existence. It is infinite. There is no beginning.
It caused itself to exist?
It didn't
why does the
start.
whole
See, this is the
why does
category
the
error.
whole why
To
does the whole
start,
chain
to cause
why does
something
the
to
whole
start
chain need an
existing.
explanation?
Yeah. To say what caused it to exist is to say when did
Well-
it start? What made it begin?
Well,
An
I would think
infinite
that
chain does
everything.
not have a beginning, therefore does not have a cause of its beginning. It's ridiculous. It's a category error, man.
No, anything that is physical, I would say needs a causal explanation.
Then you're
If it's
wrong.
not physical, if there's not some causal thing, if it's not physical, then it needs an explanation.
Then you're just wrong.
Here's the explanation, right? Like for every physical thing, it is explained by its antecedent physical cause.
Yeah, if it's explained by its antecedent physical cause, then what explains the chain of infinite causes?
Yeah, so
It has no
why does the
start to
chain
explain.
hold on a second, Matthew. Hold on a second. Why does the chain itself need an explanation when we're already explaining the parts of the chain?
Yeah, the chain needs an explanation because it is just an infinite chain of causal events.
Here,
and
You know
so
what the-
there would
do you
need to be a
understand-
foundational explanation for the infinite
I'm
chain
gonna
of causal
ask the
events.
same
why I'm
question
asking you-
Jim did
that's
in
why I'm
just a
asking you
different
why.
word, different phrasing.
Why are
Within
you?
an
Because there
why
needs to be a
does the chain-
foundational explanation for the
Why
infinite
is what I'm
chain of-
asking. You keep on saying because it needs it. I'm asking you why does it need it?
Hey, Crook, I'm gonna
Yeah,
ask you the
because
same
if there are
question he did in different
prior
words to see if it's easier to understand.
causes,
Listen,
then
listen.
if there is an infinite set of prior dependent causes, and none of those causes are the foundational explanation for the chain in itself, Jim.
What do you mean by foundational explanation?
By foundational explanation, I mean that which explains why the chain exists in the first place.
Am I just muted or something? It looks like I'm not muted.
No, but we're
No,
trying to
you're
have a
not
dialectic
muted.
here.
You're not
We're
muted. I'm
we're
talking to
but
Jim.
Yeah,
because what
he's
Jim
not
is saying
understanding
just
you. That's
seems
just I'm trying to
absolutely
help you understand what Jim
ridiculous,
asked
right?
you,
But
because you don't get what he asked you. You don't understand
so,
what he said.
so Jim, do you think that I didn't get, or I did get what you asked you? What I asked? What you asked?
Oh, you absolutely
I'm
did
unclear because you keep on asking why the chain
So
itself.
what did I
needs
not
some type of-
understand about what you
Hold on a
asked me,
second.
Jim?
Well,
That's what
I'm
I'm
in the
trying
middle
to
of
tell you.
explaining.
Yeah, Matthew, you're wrong. So I'm asking Jim, what did he say about what he said that I did not understand?
So I'm trying to understand why you think the set itself, the whole chain, needs some type of foundational explanation. Set itself, the whole chain, needs some type of foundational explanation. When we're
Yeah,
already
because if it's an
explaining-
infinite set
I'm sorry.
of-
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of my sentence.
I
When
know.
we're already explaining the individual parts within that set.
If there's an infinite set of events and they're all causal, then what's the foundational explanation for the chain in
Yeah,
itself?
you're asking the question again. That's not my question. My question
Okay,
is
so
why do we
my
need an
claim
explanation
is
for
that there's no
Stop
foundation.
Stop talking. Listen to my question. Why does the whole set need an explanation where we're already explaining the parts in the set?
How are you explaining the parts in the set?
I already gave it to you, right? I already told you that for every part in the set, it is explained by its antecedent cause.
Yeah, so the antecedent cause If everything is explained, a fundamental chain that you were talking about exists.
Well, why
Jim,
does the
can
whole
can I
chain
please fix
itself need an
this?
explanation? Look, do you understand what the
I'm
Hume
talking to
Edwards
Jim right
principle
now.
is? Let me just wrap it up in 2 minutes. Do you know what the Hume
Talking about exists.
Well, why
Jim,
does the
can
whole
can I
chain
please fix
itself need an
this?
explanation? Look, do you understand what the
I'm
Hume
talking to
Edwards
Jim right
principle
now.
is? Let me just wrap it up in 2 minutes. Do you know what the Hume Edwards principle is?
No.
Like, there's a principle made by David Hume and Jonathan Edwards, right? And basically it says that if every individual component of a series is sufficiently explained, then the entire series doesn't require further explanation.
If every individual, so you can explain every individual
Yeah.
component?
Yeah, and
By
I
its
just said that,
antecedent
right?
cause.
When I said that for every part of the set, it is explained by its antecedent cause.
Yeah, so if every part of the set is explained by its antecedent cause, I feel like you're just saying that it's explained, but I have no clue how the antecedent cause is explaining the cause in the present. Can you explain that to me?
What do you mean explaining the cause in the present?
Yeah, that just seems like a claim. You're saying every antecedent cause explains the cause in the present, as in the moment we're
That's
in
not what
now.
I. Do you think that that's what I said? Do you think that's what I said?
Yeah.
No,
I
I said
told you he
that
just doesn't
for every
understand you, Jim.
he doesn't get it. For every member in the set, it's explained by its antecedent cause.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't say anything about some antecedent cause explaining like a current cause, like today or something.
You're saying every member in the set is explained by the antecedent cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
By
Okay, what's your
its
argument for
antecedent
that?
cause.
Like
What's your
demand
argument for that, Jim?
Well, that's what the view is, right? Analytically,
No, I
that's
don't
what
care
an
about what
infinite
you think
regress
the
of
view
causes
is. I want your argument. What's your argument?
It's not what I. It's not like track the conversation.
I'm tracking the
You're acting a
conversation
little bit
perfectly
R-worded.
fine. What's
Now
your
you're acting
argument?
a
You're
little bit
making
R-worded.
claims.
Yeah,
You're
look,
making claims.
the
I'm gonna
argument.
fucking
The
destroy
argument
you
is
right now. What's your fucking argument?
Yeah. How about you simmer down there before I fucking school you like I've done in this panel many times? Okay. So like, look.
Because he's a fucking
What the
retard and
argument
he's
you're
blurting out
asking.
here.
You're asking. Yeah. Shut your
now
fucking
you
mouth,
gotta go,
right? You
Perk.
fucking clown.
Now you gotta
all
go,
right?
Prook.
Shut your
Okay,
fucking mouth, you clown. How about you pick up a book?
Trying to help
How about you
you.
pick up a book and fucking read what infinite regress is? Give me an argument for infinite regress. That's a fucking view, you moron. What fucking argument do you want?
So Jim, do you mean?
Well-
Jeez, that got out of control. Jim, do you mean, or just Jim? Do you mean like it's a ever changing cause, right? That's that an infinite regress?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question?
Sorry, is that when you say infinite regress of causal chains or whatever? Like, these are changing causes, right? Like one cause is completely different from the next cause, right?
Not necessarily.
Sure. I mean, it could be.
What he's saying is that the
There's
current
nothing that
effect
necessitates it.
has an antecedent cause.
But
That
if
antecedent
it's the
cause
same
has its
cause,
own antecedent cause. That antecedent
But-
cause has its own antecedent
but
cause.
is it the
Ad
same cause
infinitum.
though? But is it the same cause in nature, or is it a completely different cause in like essence?
No, each one is individual.
Ever change.
Each one
And
is its own
changing.
individual entity.
And changing, right? It's a different cause from the last, right?
Well, let's say a like a hydrogen bonding reaction happened 1,000 years ago, and a hydrogen bonding reaction happened today with the same atoms of hydrogen. That would
The
be
same
the
cause.
same thing happening. It's just at a different time. It's a different instant
Right, so-
of the same thing.
Right. But so is it the
So
same
it's
cause, or is it a
each-
changing cause? This infinite regress. Everything's
every single cause is going to be its own individual cause.
Right.
It's going to be
it's a
defined by
different
not
changing.
only what the cause is, but when the cause is occurring.
But the cause is completely different in essence and in nature.
I don't
right?
even know what I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. I've
Like,
tried to
the
explain it
cause-
like 5 times now.
Like you said,
What do
the
you mean
cause
by
that
what do you
whatever.
mean by same or different?
like you said, like the cause, whatever that makes, I don't know, elements go together, whatever, at one period of time is the same cause that makes these things happen at another period of time, but it's just the same cause, right?
Here, let me
With different
let me give
changing.
an example. Let me give an example. I'm a professional bowler, okay? I am ridiculously consistent with the way I bowl. I am super good. I am famous for how well I bowl. I'm amazingly good. I can get a 300 every game. I roll 3 strikes in a row. I get my turkey. Every time I bowl, I take the exact same steps, the exact same movements, the exact same spin happens on the ball, the same forces are applied. Every single thing is the exact same every single time, perfectly consistent down to the atom. Are each of those 3 times I bowled different causes, or is it the same
No,
cause happening 3 different times?
the same cause, right? That's
Yeah,
what you're saying.
that's what can happen throughout this infinite chain. You can have repeated causes happening at different times.
But not repeated causes, repeated events of the same cause.
Yeah. So they're not
But it's not an
always
infinite
going to be
regressive
different
cause.
causes.
So
They're
then
not always going to be
that's
the
just like
same
the
causes.
no, the
It's
same
just going to
cause
be
is
an
the
infinite
same.
chain.
No, the cause is the same. The state's going to be different of the same cause. You're saying it's all the same cause, like you just said. So you're
I'm not
just
even
saying
sure
there's
what
just
you're
one
trying to
cause.
like figure out. I
None
don't
of those things
understand how
is
this is so
necessary
complicated.
or a problem. It could be the fact that there's only, you could have a reality where only 3 steps exist: point A, point B, and point C. Point A is the cause of point B is the cause of point C, and point C is the cause of point A. A is always identical. We'll call it A prime. B is always identical. We'll call it B prime. C is always identical. We'll call it C prime. There's nothing contradictory about this system existing independently, infinitely, for all time. A to B to C,
There
A to
could
B
be
to C, A to B to C.
there could be three
Well,
causes, infinitely, right? Or one cause, or two
A could
cause.
lead to A and always be consistent, and that would just be a static position.
Right. But there's like three causes there, right?
what the fuck? What are you asking,
Three
dude? Like,
different causes.
what is your question trying to discern? Look,
I
the
think I've
Edwards
explained it
principle
pretty
I'm
well
just
a
is
trying
couple of
to.
super fucking
times.
simple. All the Edwards principle is saying that in an infinite set, each member is explained by some prior cause. I don't give a single fuck how many causes there are, or the types of cause you want to discern. Right? That would have been
Yeah,
what
it could only
Edward
be one
wanted to
cause.
invoke. Nobody cares. That's not
Yeah,
stipulated.
so
You can stipulate that any way you want.
so it can only be one cause, right? That's what you're
Where
saying.
did you get that from? Gabe,
You're
lock
saying
the
there could be
fuck in
one
right now.
infinite set of the same cause.
Gabe, lock the fuck in, right? For an
Dude, you gotta
infinite
get a grip.
set,
Yo,
for an
get a grip, buddy.
infinite set, there
You're
is
losing
a
it.
explanation from a prior cause. If there's an
Yeah.
infinite
So like,
set of
look,
members,
are
how
you
would there be
saying
one cause?
look, hold on a second. Are you like, I would agree with you if you're saying that, like, let's say for example, the causes are like qualitatively identical or something, but I'm not going to say that they're like quantitatively identical.
Let's say like ontically identical.
What are you talking about ontically, moron? An infinite set need not be ontic and property based.
I'm talking about the cause.
Yeah, the
You're
cause
saying
need not be ontic either.
yeah. I'm saying we can be whatever. You're saying it could be a different change of completely different causes, like ontically or
No, I'm just
an
saying, look,
essence.
there's a cause. Stop asking. Look, I don't care if you want to like
Yeah,
discern if it's
there's
an
a
efficient
cause, but
cause,
it
a
could be
final cause, a first
could
cause,
it be
a
could the
manual.
next cause. Yeah. There's a cause, and then whatever caused that can be a completely
No,
different
no, no,
cause,
no, no,
right?
no, no, no. I said each member, which need not be a cause in and of itself, is explained by a prior cause. You can have a member of the set that's an object or a concept or any type of thing that you choose to assign the status of member in set theory on. Right? Nobody is invoking the types of cause or number of cause or properties of these causes except you. It's an irrelevant.
Could be completely irrelevant. I was just wondering their people's opinions on it, what they think about
Well, then
that
go fucking
question.
research Edwards and Hume. I'm sure they have an extensive reading on it, considering they
We
disagree.
can't, dude. You need to get a grip, dude. We're just having a conversation, dude.
It's a stupid conversation. It's irrelevant to the point.
I kind of got to agree with him though. The amount of times I've explained it and the amount of different ways I've explained it, it's a bit frustrating.
Like, holy fuck, I don't know how many types of ways you can be told that an apple exists. Like, holy shit, man. It's the most frustrating thing ever. It's just a
Hey,
simple
Yeah,
so what
but
do you
principle.
what
is
do
it
you
a
think,
granny
buddy?
apple or red delicious?
What do you think? Infinite regress is like the most plausible.
I don't give a fuck.
Okay, that's cool. So people who
I
do, I
think
guess
it's
we're
the
having a
simplest
conversation about it. So I don't
explanation.
know why you're
Infinite
talking about
regress
it.
is the simplest explanation that requires the least amount of assumptions.
Right, but this infinite regress is eternal as well, right? So it's eternal, but an infinite
Yes,
regress of
yes,
causes
it's eternal and infinite. Yes,
as opposed to one cause.
yes, it is eternal and infinite.
So why would that be more rational as opposed to one cause?
I'm
It
gonna lose it.
requires the least amount of presupposition, the least amount of assumption being made. It just denotes what
Oh
we
yeah,
see.
also
It
yeah,
just relies on what we
yeah, I was
observe about reality currently and relies on
yeah,
nothing else.
I remember what I'm saying. Like this universe is constantly changing. All matter is in motion, constantly changing. And if something that's goes back to my definition of eternal, or I guess what Google says eternal is, it's essentially unchanging. So something that is in constant changing cannot be eternal.
Yeah, that's why I
Why the fuck
rejected.
are
Like
you
I
appealing to
clarified this.
Google's definition, a pejorative definition that's not applicable given the context of what we're discussing here?
What's your definition of eternal?
That's why I clarified this. I don't know why you keep on bringing this point, right? Like that. If we're invoking or leaning towards some type of infinite regress, that doesn't mean eternal, right? That doesn't mean non-changing. So I don't know why you keep on bringing this point up.
Well, did the universe have a beginning then? Because if it didn't have a beginning, then it's eternal. Whatever this infinite regress is, never began and never will
I'm
end.
convinced he's not
remember
listening.
do you remember what I explained eternal versus infinite means?
Yeah, like eternal has no beginning and no ending, and infinite can have a beginning.
Infinites don't have
That
beginnings.
wasn't my explanation.
That was not Jim's explanation. Jim's explanation was eternal, having no time, right? No beginning, no end,
That's what I
infinite.
said.
Unbounding.
That's not what
Lasting
you're
or
saying.
existing forever without any
Eternal,
beginning.
infinite is different than eternal. Yes.
Yes, these are two
eternal's
different
gonna be
semantics. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eternal,
so I'm talking
like
about
when we're talking like
eternal.
metaphysics, right? Eternal is going to be something that's outside of time and space, like timeless, right? It doesn't have a time reference attached to it, right? That's what it means.
Right.
To,
Exactly. So I guess you
so
can't say infinite regress is eternal. Then I guess yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, that's why. Like, so if we're saying that there's something that goes on infinitely into the past, we're just saying that it's unquantifiable, but it's still within time, right? We're not saying that it's outside of time.
So it's not eternal then, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's why I
yeah,
don't understand why you keep on giving this objection that, like, well,
I
infinite
thought Matthew was
regress is
saying the universe
eternal
is
and eternal
eternal.
things don't
Yeah.
change, but the universe changes, and so therefore there's a
Right.
contradiction,
Okay.
right? Because now we're
all right.
confused.
Yeah, I get it. So the view is that the universe is not eternal. I get it. Okay. I don't know. Either the universe is eternal or not eternal. You think it makes more sense that the universe is not eternal and infinitely regressing. Interesting.
That's like different semantics. You understand that, right? I don't know how, like, it seems like as if you're stating this as if though you made a point.
And like, look, there's going to be many different infinitists. Like, I don't know how much of I'm going to make different distinctions on their use of these words that you've so eloquently enlightened us that are different, right? So, I mean, obviously the account that Jim's giving is going to be very different from something like Ruckster or any other infinitist is going to give.
All right. That makes sense.
What was
In layman's
sorry?
terms, Krakow
driving.
could be very different from something like Ruckster or any other infinitist is going to give.
All right. That makes sense.
What was
In
sorry?
layman's
I was
terms, crack open a
driving.
fucking book.
Yo, I was driving and stuff, but I'm still kind of what's the point of like what we're trying to get at in this topic of just like if infinity is like true, like what is this?
I think the conversation stemmed from the point. I think the conversation stemmed from the point that some type of idealism is going to be more parsimonious than some type of physicalism, because a physicalist may be committed to some type of infinite regress that seems to be more assume more things.
It's like
idealist would.
yeah, it's kind of like incomprehensible almost, eh? To comprehend it.
Atheists
Well, it may
or
be
agnostics.
intuitively.
Do you,
It may be
sorry,
unintuitive, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be less parsimonious.
do you guys think it's harder to debate an idealist or a theist if you had to choose?
Oh, considering they're often one and the same, I don't care.
I've never had any
think I-
difficulty debating a theist.
Sorry.
I think
They're often
idealists
one and the
are like
same?
the Mormons of the atheist world.
Idealists are more like Buddhists to me, honestly.
Well, idealist takes what's nature's given and explains everything through that. A physicalist has to postulate a non-given, which is matter, and try to like explain subjective experience through that, and then run into the hard problem of consciousness.
I already
What
did
did you
that.
just say?
I literally.
No,
Matthew,
Matthew,
I
I
understand.
Stupid shit.
Hold on.
Matthew,
You
I still don't
understand
accept
that.
your answer though.
You understand that in the project of trying to explain how our universe works, right? The task that reductive physicalism has taken on has been able to explain, for the most part, how our universe functions, and has made advancements in science and different areas. Whereas the project of idealism has really not moved the needle forward, right? Like, what advancements in technology has
science-
idealism done
Yeah,
over the project of like reductive physicalism?
But science is a study of the behavior of nature. It doesn't study that which behaves. That's ultimately a philosophical question.
Did you just say that science is the study of the behavior of nature, but it doesn't study in a way that which it behaves?
No, it doesn't study that which behaves. Something is behaving, okay? What we study is the behavior of what it is, not what it is. Science can't answer that question. That's a
Yeah,
philosophical
no
question.
shit. That's not the discipline of science. Look, Gabe.
Exactly.
And that's also not what Jim
But
said.
science gets into metaphysical. Science gets into
That's
metaphysical
also
when they
not what Jim
postulate
said.
physicalism.
Jim's point was all to go to say, look, science, as like, we'll take chemistry. If it's rooted in physicalism, produces flourishing for those around us as we make scientific discoveries that benefit us. But if we were to interpret some type of fundamental idealism, we'd be non-dynamic or maybe even regressive if one were to make that empirical claim. It has nothing to do with the domain of what science actually studies. That's not what Jim was talking about.
Like we would remain, you said regressive. Like we wouldn't go further into science if we
I
were
said
idealists.
non-dynamic or regressive, one of the two.
I don't know about that. You don't think we would still do science if we were idealists?
If I thought that everything that which is around me is a fundamental substrate of mental processes or some type of idyllic processes, yeah, I would be less inclined to study their physical properties, given I don't think these fundamental properties are physical in nature, meaning any discipline that seeks to study the behavior of physical processes would be invalid in a world where we don't think the fundamental processes are physical.
Yeah, but you still want to study the behavior of the mind. You know what I mean? Like understand the world and become masters of matter. I understand.
It's fine, but like, look, the point is that like when looking at both hypotheses, right? The advancements that reductive physicalism has had in explaining the world, right? We could have more confidence based on the success over the hypothesis of idealism, right? Idealism has done very little to explain the world around us, right? So why would I hold to some theory that has had very little success over another one that has, right? And in this one area of what is consciousness or the mind, right, is where kind of idealism plants its flag. But it overlooks the mountains of strides that reductive physicalism has had in explaining the rest of the world. Right? It's just a matter of time before we either get like some type of technology or understanding to be able to explain these little pockets of knowledge that we currently don't have.
No, see, Jim, that's false, right? Because it's obviously more expected under the hypothesis that everything that is fundamentally idyllic in nature, and it's fundamentally idyllic given God's divine mind is that which watches all over us. That's much more expected given our
Oh,
observation.
of course, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, well, I mean, I wouldn't hold to something like that, but that's besides the point.
And you say God watches mind watches all over us. I mean, Bernardo Cascio postulates that mind is not metacognitive. The mind at large is not metacognitive, and it's just purely instinctual.
I'm
and
just
it's
saying
doing what
that,
it's
like,
doing because it is what it is.
maybe some theistic notions, like maybe what Gabe is. I mean, I'm not sure. It's more like deism, but besides the point, there may be some kind of notions as far as this goes in theism that would hold to something like that, but I wouldn't say I would. And I don't
See,
think that's what Cage was saying. I was just merely pointing out that I wouldn't hold that.
See,
Oh, I'm
I've already
proud of
gone
you, Wit.
through this whole discussion on how the brain has all these functions, how the human body does these things, how the world around us works in this way, and you've still boiled down to this hard problem of consciousness. We've shown that damage to the brain damages cognition, showing that cognition comes from the brain. We know all of these things. This is not something that's even up for debate anymore. This problem of the hard problem of consciousness of why we experience it as a subjective experience in the way we do, that could simply be explained by during evolution, that specific process that resulted in this happened to be the best capable of surviving.
Well,
It could
that
be
would
as
be.
simple as that.
What?
Well, look, I
The
mean, that like
why could be as
this
simply
is.
it could be as simply the best possible available system that was able to survive.
Yeah, that it would just be at least like a narrative notion to the understanding of why.
I'm sorry. I'm really confused about that. Are you saying that consciousness evolved? Like consciousness now is different back then
The
from
brain
people's
evolved.
experiences?
He's merely
The
saying
brain evolved.
he's merely saying that, like, to the answer of the why, right, or the hard problem of consciousness, he could
The
say
physical.
like, right, he's
Yeah.
saying that, like, evolution as we understand it, like, that would be like in conjunction to something, those sorts of things.
Well, what's the evidence for that?
Well, I mean, they're going to give you evidence for evolution, but
No, with the evidence of the like consciousness going through evolution, like what's the evidence for
Well, I've already given you the evidence that consciousness arises from the brain. So the evidence of our current conscious state being a system that has arisen from.
consciousness going through evolution? Like what's the evidence for
Well, I've already given you the evidence that consciousness arises from the brain. So the evidence of our current conscious state being a system that has arisen from evolution would just be evidence of human evolution.